Anti-derivative Jill.
Greetings and felicitations.
And hello, I'm Anti-Derivative Jill, and this is Indefinite Lunch and Infinite Combinations number 79. Today we're reviewing the next original series episode, the Star Trek original series episode, in production order. And it's the last episode of season 2, the backdoor pilot episode, Assignment Earth. And I'm so happy you guys are here to talk to me about the end of season 2. We're glad to have Pop Culture Curator here today, and I want everyone to make sure to catch his live stream tonight to talk about the Blob.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all.
Hello. Hello also to Scotty R37. Make sure to follow him on Twitter X.
Hello.
And so for reference to production in these episodes, some facts come from the 365 original series book by Paul M. Block and Terry J. Erdman, as I first saw on the Cloudburn Times channel with Raquel Briggs, which is really exciting this week because it's going to be the end of season 2 of Voyager for Saturday Night Star Trek. So I'll be on the panel for that. And finally, Raquel Briggs is back to the show. The show is not the same without her, so I'm so excited for that. But also, I'll talk a bit. The other book I look at now quite a bit is These Are the Voyages by Mark Cushman, which is really, really cool. And it was free on archive.org, but season 3 I had to get the Kindle, but it doesn't have pictures, so I might have to buy the physical copy. Anyway, let's check out Assignment Earth. So before I begin with the slides, I'll give away the basic summary so no one has to worry about giving spoilers, or, you can go in any order you like, even though the slides will be going scene by scene. Assignment Earth. The Enterprise travels back to the year 1968 to determine how Earth managed to avoid a pending nuclear crisis that year. While in orbit around the planet, the ship intercepts a powerful transporter beam that apparently had been carrying a humanoid named Gary 7 to Earth. The mysterious 7 explains that he's a 20th century man trained by aliens to deal with the situation. Kirk doesn't trust 7 or his extremely advanced equipment or the strangely intelligent black cat that accompanies him. However, if he doesn't let 7 do his job, he runs the risk of changing Earth's history, and not for the better. And so I also want to say hello to the chat. Franco Walker's here. He reminded me to put up the poll. Thank you so much. He's telling us that he's going to give this episode an A for Terry Garr.
Which is really funny because Terry Garr gives this episode an F.
True. Yes, true. She definitely was not happy.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I get some conflicting reports on that, but yes.
I can't wait to get into it.
And hello also to Snortopupus Cuber. And Stone Racket says, I give this episode an A for Isis. Both in cat form, 7 different kitties. Yeah, that's also a number that's in contention because the actor for Gary 7, Robert, says
Lansing.
that he says that there were 3 kitties, but Bijou Trimble says there are 7 kitties. How many kitties were there, really?
There is quite like a shroud of mystery around this this episode in terms of actors and amount of kitties. It is, it's in orbit around Isis specifically. It's crazy.
Doomcock is Matt G says Doomcock streaming in a few hours, so make sure this is done by then, or else I'll send Harvey to this channel with the Necronomicon. You know what though? Actually, you're threatening me with something that I would like to happen. If Doomcock rolled into my stream with Harvey and started doing jokes, I'd die. It'd be great. Grill, but that's not happening. Grill is random thoughts. Says, too busy to think of why it's an F. Okay. Thank you, Gorilla. Jamalama says, hi, everyone. Have fun while I'm at the dentist. Oh, no, not the dentist. Sorry.
Good luck.
It always feels better once you're done.
True.
Like, it feels like you've been to a spa. Like, oh, well, I guess that was good after all. Stone Racket says, Taylor Swift is greater than Disney Star Wars, but she's not greater than Star Trek. 66 to 69. Oh, wow. You got it much nearer than I do. I let it go all the way to 2005.
What if Taylor Swift had sung the theme song to Enterprise? We would have had a hit. Of course, she would have been 5. Probably younger than 5.
Yeah. What? I don't know how old she is.
Neither do I.
John, Shaggy, Rupas, and Peter Ryder, Captain Infinity's here. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Infinity.
Also, Sci-Fi Mombi is also here. Also, Giannis Queen Jess, Reba Bell, good to see you. Series spin-off pilot, right? Sadly, it failed. It did.
Oh, that sly Mr. Roddenberry. Backdoor pilots and all.
We'll bring up if that was a sad thing or not.
Yeah. I think Terry Garr experienced some issues at the hands of a certain womanizer who kept wanting her skirt made shorter, says Snorta Hoopus.
Oh, really?
Yep. But didn't she know what show she was on? And didn't she look at the lady skirts that everybody, all the other ladies were wearing? It seems more like a short-sightedness on her part.
Well, yeah, but we have covered how Gene Roddenberry enjoyed being hands-on when it came to adjusting the women's wardrobe.
Mm-hmm. And hello to Darius Munchausen. Hey.
Darius.
Whoa, he sent me a super sticker. What'd you do that for? That's amazing.
Oh, very
See
cool.
what that is. I need to pop out my chat here so I can see it. I like seeing what it is, but StreamYard doesn't tell you.
So you have to see it through YouTube?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's popcorn.
Hooray.
Yeah, it would have been a really cute hit. She was born in 89, as my daughter tells me all the time. Oh, okay.
Yeah, didn't
she she's not as young as you thought.
Did she have an album called 1989? I don't know. I forget. I'm not that big of a Taylor Swift fan.
I find Terry Garr rather delightful in this episode, says Stone Racket. So let's look at it then. Let's look at this episode. Where are all my things? I lost my things. They're there.
Now, in terms of Gorilla looking for reasons to give this an F, routine historical observation using the light speed breakaway method to travel into Earth's past, as if this is just a field trip.
Yeah, it's a magic school bus time to go back in time and go, you remember in yesterday where it was shaking up the ship, is going to break it apart. Well, now that's not a problem anymore. It's all good. Assignment Earth first aired on March 29th, 1968. The story credit goes to Art Wallace and Gene Roddenberry, with the teleplay written by Art Wallace. But basically, Art Wallace wrote it with Gene Roddenberry edits. It was directed by Mark Daniels. And yes, they use the same time travel method as they do at the end of Tomorrow's Yesterday, which is referred to now as the slingshot effect, which they also later use at Star Trek 4, where they do remember that it's not such an easy thing. And hello to Dadman Walking 55. Have a great stream. Got a crazy day. Hey, enjoy your crazy day, Dadman.
You'll make it. I believe in you, Dadman.
Yes, you will have a good day. And Buddy, can you read a captain's log for us?
Absolutely.
While the ship crashes around.
Captain's log. Using the light speed breakaway factor, the Enterprise has moved back through time to the 20th century. We are now in extended orbit around Earth using our ship's deflector shields to remain unobserved. Our mission, historical research. We are monitoring Earth communications to find out how our planet survived desperate problems in the year 1968.
Yeah, this episode takes place entirely in 1968 with no scenes in the 23rd century. And the only other episode to stay in the past for the entire episode was an Enterprise episode called Stormfront, which stayed in 1944. And actually, both episodes are around New York City. That's kind of funny.
So in this episode, they established that the shields work as a cloaking device, apparently.
At least to primitive Earth detection
telescopes.
Telescopes? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. That, you know what? You're absolutely right. It makes sense that it could fool a satellite, but a telescope, not so much. So that's a fair point. That's a little bit of silliness there. It was but this episode is clearly an attempt by Roddenberry to make sure he has a show going in case Star Trek was canceled. It never made it to air, but several IDW comics about Gary 7 were made. However, the idea of having helpful aliens who want what's best for Earth come up again in Gene Roddenberry's movie, The Questor Tapes, which is something that I need to see.
Is it just a TV movie?
I think it was. Questor Tapes and Spectre, I think, were both TV movies.
I need to see both of those things. I want to watch all the Gene Roddenberry stuff.
Except for Pretty Maids All in a Row.
Well, I'll still watch that. The AI shows says Assignment Earth sounds like the title of an ITV series created by Jerry and Sylvia Anderson. Oh, hey, Miss Martin Muses is stopping by. Hello.
Hello.
Hello there.
Franco Walker says, I'm very busy too, popping in and out of chat. I'm having a bit of a sit down. Oh, nice. Okay. Snortapoop says, unfortunately, this episode gave the impression that this light speed rubber band snap maneuver was becoming routine instead of an accidental thing they stumbled into. Stone Rocket said, I saw this episode when it first premiered. I was enthralled by Gary 7 and his cat, Isis. I was 8 years old at the time. James Caserta said, the Sins. The 365 book has something to say about it, too. Star Trek was not the only idea for a TV series to germinate within Gene Roddenberry's fertile imagination. Throughout his career, he conceived many interesting tales, most of which fell under the category of speculative fiction. One such idea had to do with an Earthman named Gary 7 who traveled from the future to the 20th century in order to fight evil shape-changing Omegans? Omegans? Yeah, that sounds better. Out to change history to their advantage. Roddenberry pinned. Oh, hey, this is weird. We have the guest star in the opening credits, Robert Langston, as Mr. 7. Anyway, Roddenberry.
Yeah. At the time, he was quite popular after having starred in 12 O'Clock High, and so he was a sort of a high profile actor to have on this. So even if it hadn't been a backdoor pilot, it's quite high profile to have that man as your guest star on the season finale.
Yeah, I have no idea who he is aside from this episode, but he's a pretty good actor.
Yeah, he played in a good B sci-fi movie called The 4D Man, where he could walk through walls. He replaced Steve McQueen on there because Steve McQueen had a bad attitude. So he replaced him, and it's a pretty good movie. I believe it was Phantom Boomer did a watch party of it a few days ago on
That's
Cosmic.
cool. Does that actually have to do with the mathematics of living in the fourth dimension? Having
No. What it
Oh.
is, he's a scientist, and he stumbles accidentally a mistake that lets him walk through walls, glass windows, etc. That's the closest it gets to the fourth dimension.
Oh, gotcha. But that's still cool. Snorapoopa says, fortunately, Earth in our timeline didn't have the ability to launch orbital weapons in 69, or at least nobody tried that we know of. Right. They had rules against that sort of thing.
Right. This is still the era of Sputnik. So
Wait a minute.
baby steps in.
What? Stone Racket says the Questor tapes will be released on Blu-ray by Kino Lorber in December. Whoa.
Cool.
Yeah, that's news to me. I wonder if anyone has created fan YouTube series about Gary 7. Now that might be interesting, says the AI show. Yeah, why not?
Well, and I know there's enough to separate these two properties, but I watch it with an inkling in the back of my noggin that I'm watching the American version of Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, there are some things that make you think about that for sure. Even though he's technically human and not alien, but he is manipulated by aliens. Roddenberry penned a pilot script towards the end of 1966 during Star Trek's first season, but apparently didn't sell. However, a year later, with Star Trek's cancellation a very real threat, Roddenberry must have thought there might be a way to raise a phoenix from the existing series' embers. He dusted off the Gary 7 tale and reworked it with writer Art Wallace, transforming it into a Star Trek episode that he hoped would serve as a springboard for a brand new series. The bad news was that NBC wasn't interested. The good news was that Star Trek was renewed for a third season. And so, of course, we got a transporter that can traverse 1,000, was it?
Light years?
1,000 light years? Was it really 1,000 light years? Yeah, because that really throws Scotty for a loop. And this is the only episode where a Federation transporter system is used to intercept and redirect another transporter beam.
Well, and there are, just to get this out of the way, rip it off like a Band-Aid, double plus quick. In Star Trek 2009 and Into Darkness, they do talk about transporters. They can beam between worlds, which is... And then in Picard season 2, we have a supervisor who uses a Gary 7-esque teleporter in the same vein with like the blue clouds and whatnot.
Oh, the flame and everything.
Yeah. So just to acknowledge it and say that it's there, but now we don't have to. You're welcome.
Well, you did it for us. This is a little bit better because at least it's an alien doing it, and it isn't the Federation who can traverse 1,000 light years.
Right.
And that new effect that you're talking about, the little fire effect, is probably because of that 1,000 light year transporter beam.
Well, and also it's interesting that if this is intended to be the launch pad for more stories with Gary 7 and Miss Lincoln, first thing Gene Roddenberry does is make it so that you don't have to show people traveling between point A and point B. Let's make it as cost effective and quick as possible.
I doubt the longevity. I don't think they could have kept enough original scripts to keep the series going. I think that's why NBC turned it down.
Well, also coming from a television show that was, as we've pointed out in the past, rather expensive, and it wasn't getting the attention that they would have liked, why invest something from the same sort of production team?
Well, they figured that. I think Gene figured that setting it in the present would make things cheaper.
And also, you'd be able to travel to different worlds based on the 1,000 light year sort of distance.
Yeah, pretty easily. Definitely. So you didn't have to be earthbound all the time, but much of the time it could be.
Well, it sounded like his assignment was Earth, so I think
Yep.
it would have
Oh my
been.
God.
I think it would have been only on Earth.
That makes sense. I stand corrected. It probably would have been the title of the show as well.
That's
Yeah,
what
but
I'm saying.
they're aliens, so you never know. There might be
I know.
something.
I just can't see. But I don't know. I could be wrong. A lot of people like Deep Space Nine, and that's why I never thought Deep Space Nine would get off the ground, because I thought since they were traveling through space.
Well, see, this wasn't just
But
a sci-fi show. This was like a spy show, so it would have been more like Man from Uncle, or maybe
yes,
even UFO. I don't know, but like a different kind. Instead of the aliens being malicious or trying to take over the Earth like in UFO, they're benevolent and they want to help Earth. So I think it's a good twist. It just we never got to see it, so that's why I want to see the Questor tapes.
And there were a couple of Gary Seven, like I think Greg Cox wrote 2 novels. He included him in the Eugenics Wars duology of books about the rise and fall of Khan Noonien Singh. And there's another book called Assignment Eternity, which is the adventures of Gary Seven and Roberta Lincoln.
Oh yeah, I haven't read those. That's cool.
Well, I think we talked about them with
yeah.
Robert Meyer Burnett on our Star Trek Day show. Was the Khan Noonien Singh duology novels.
Right. Hello to Matt G. And also the AI show says Robert Lansing actually should have been cast as a recurring villain on Star Trek. He would have been perfect. Yes.
Recurring villain or recurring admiral would have been cool. That man has gravitas.
There are some Star Trek novels featuring Gary Seven. Oh yeah, just like you just said. I think they work some plot lines from the Eugenic Wars.
Oh.
I haven't read them. I haven't read them either. And hello to PJ. Hey PJ at Orville Nation.
hello there.
Hello.
And Matt G corrects you. It's called Star Trek Into Dumbness.
That is true.
The AI show says the American version of Doctor Who. A ridiculous idea. The closest to that was the awful Fox TV movie in the 1990s. A horrible movie. Oh.
The Americanization of Doctor Who. Yeah, but I like Paul McGann as the Doctor, and he did get a chance to sort of redeem himself in some web shorts.
I think the plot of this episode is too thin to really tell whether it's supposed to be Doctor Who.
It's really just
like,
it's just superficial
yeah.
in terms of the servo being like the sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, but were they developed at the same time, or was it after or before? I don't know. I didn't look that stuff up.
Doctor Who was in 1963 was when it released. It was released on the same day that JFK was assassinated.
So 1963, was that the first episode?
Yeah.
And that first episode has the sonic screwdriver?
No. The sonic screwdriver did come into use on the television show a couple of years before this episode, but
oh, okay, yeah. So it depends on when this episode was crafted first, and if the servo was included in that first script.
True.
So that's something to look into that I did not do. Somebody else do that. There's something for someone else to find out. Dark Helmet says, stopping by to say hi, back to my sci-fi show. Oh, hey, yeah, have fun with your sci-fi show. And hello to the Basco scenario. And Eraserhead, too. Let's see, who else stopped by here? James Caserta says, I have fought many aliens on many distant worlds, saved many races from their own impending destruction. But you, Miss Lincoln, are another matter. The kind of series that Assignment Earth would have spawned would be like a mix of Mission Impossible and UFO. Mission Intergalactic, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and this. Oh, cool.
I am actually, and one of the other things that is sort of surprising to me is that when they wrote this, they incorporated the cat, because notoriously cats are not, you can't train them really. They do whatever they want.
Maybe that's why they had so many cats. One would do the sitting, one would do the walking.
Yes, I was actually when I was watching it because it was surprising that the cat was being so compliant with stage direction. It was like I was wondering how many treats were in Robert Lansing's pockets.
Yeah, and that makes sense why they had several cats, because if you can get several cats to be happy. Just one would be difficult. I know they had a time with Spot on TNG. They might have done better if they had several.
Well, and it would tend to drag down production. I have a feeling if the series would have been greenlit, ISIS wouldn't have lasted through very many episodes.
Well, Robert Lansing, who plays Gary Seven, is the only Star Trek original series guest star who appears in the opening credits. Yes, so we did notice that. And yeah, so he's from he's been trained by aliens.
I got the
generations.
And
I got the feeling this was produced, like, for example, the film, or the way the angles here, like the angle with him talking to Kirk and back and forth. You notice how tight the close up is?
They are. Right.
There's not a lot of space around their heads. I'm guessing this episode was filmed by a different crew that they were planning on using if the show had been picked up. I don't think it was filmed by the Star Trek crew. Camera angles, everything are different in this episode.
Well, this is very clearly not a Star Trek episode. We get to
but
be
it
on
even, right, but it even looks, if you look at the camera angles and everything, it doesn't look like it was shot by the same people who do Star Trek.
We have about 10 minutes or so on the ship, and then it turns into the Gary show.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I sort of got the same sense of as you did, Pop, just in terms of it having its own visual style that would have carried over if it had been picked up.
And who is this guy who can resist a Vulcan neck pinch? That's not usual for humans. Exactly.
You know, he's born in the 20th century.
Right. He's of a generational line, as Scotty said, of people who have been abducted by aliens and raised by them for generations. So who knows what they did to them? I have no clue. Nobody does. Oh, according to the Star Trek Compendium, they were going to have the Enterprise bridge crew watch an episode of Bonanza on the view screen, which would have made sense because they don't really do much else in this episode anyway. They do a little communications work, and that's about it.
But we do get all 7 on deck, plus some magic movement around the ship by Eddie Paskey. Our boy Leslie. But yeah, we get
magic movement.
Yeah, there is one scene where Kirk is making an announcement to the ship, and you see Eddie Paskey in gold walking through a corridor, and then they cut to engineering where Scotty and Mr. Leslie are both in engineering, and he's wearing the red engineering jumpsuit. And then later on, I think he does. During the captain's log, Mr. Leslie is on the bridge in red, just in regular operations operations tunic, and so he's all over the place. He's jumping all over the place. It's crazy.
That is pretty crazy. But we have another Captain's Log supplemental pop culture curator. Could you read this one for us?
Absolutely. Captain's Log supplemental. A man in a 20th century business suit. What is he? Not even Spock's Vulcan neck pinch could stop him. Without our phasers, he would have overpowered all 5 of us. I find it difficult to believe the mysterious Mr. Seven could be human, and yet suppose he is.
Yeah, I'm glad that this supplemental was added, because that's how I feel about it. How can you be stronger than Spock? He's supposed to be 3 times stronger than anybody. And
that was something that I noticed while we were watching the Omega Glory. Is Kirk says to Spock, "I wish you'd teach me how to do that someday," and Spock says, "I have tried." And we do later on get to see non-Vulcans perform the Vulcan neck pinch, including Picard. Picard does it in Starship Mine. And
he does it, but he doesn't if someone did it to him, he'd still pass out.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
do
if I've
have.
ever seen the Vulcan neck pinch performed on another Vulcan.
I do have a problem with Picard doing that, but
Me too.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. I wasn't aware of that. I
I
guess
actually was.
my mind
I actually
erased
was
it.
better. I was better with Data doing it because Data is strong.
Mm-hmm. But even then, unification was before Starship Mine, I think. And even then, when Data did it, I thought, okay, I'll grant it because he's strong. But I always thought that there was something also to do with like the telepathic thing.
I thought so too, but
Vulcans
that's something that Leonard Nimoy says, and so it's not exactly on screen, but I do buy it because Leonard Nimoy essentially helped create the Vulcans, so maybe. Snortopoopa says a polar bear would have been easier to work with. You just need to have some seals and walruses around. And Stone Racket says my cat Harpo would have worked out just fine on Star Trek. Oh man, your cat should have been an actor. The Gary Show. Oh, that was funny? I didn't mean it to be funny. The AI Show says, frankly, I would have preferred the officers watch Gunsmoke on their view screens, not Bonanza. And the answer is that there are 3 Mr. Leslie clones aboard the Enterprise. 1 in each division. There used to be 4, but that one was killed.
It's like Saving Private Ryan. There are 4 brothers.
Mm-hmm. They left out that part of the log. We understand he went to the Walford house and survived. How can he be human? And of course, we have Spock, who he likes the cat. What does he say exactly?
I'm strangely drawn to it, Captain.
That's it. Strangely drawn to it, and it reminds me of when I had that video on here for a while of him saying that he's not affected by the tribbles, but he very clearly is affected by the tribbles. So there's something about Vulcans and pets, and we know that's true because they have their own pets on their home world, the Sellat. So there you go. And I really like that aspect of Vulcans and their connection with other living beings. And actually, the voice of the cat is the meowing that you hear is actually done by a human being.
Oh, obviously.
Barbara Babcock. Barbara Babcock, who was in A Taste of Armageddon and Trelane's mother in The Squire of Gothos, provided 2 voices for this episode: the Beta 5 computer, which we're going to see later, and Isis the cat. She said they didn't want to use a real cat's voice because there was such a range of emotion that this cat went through. It was almost human. So that's why they picked a human being to do her. And that was lots of fun. To be hired to play an animal was one of the most exciting things of all. And here we have some predictions from Mr. Spock, which kind of are eerily do come true. There will be an important assassination today, an equally dangerous government coup in Asia. And he talks about the rocket. And this episode first aired on March 29th, 6 days later. Of course, we know on April 4th, 1968, there was an important assassination. We lost Martin Luther King Jr. And that same day as the assassination, there was a orbital nuclear warhead that was. Wait a minute. Oh, Spock says that there was an orbital nuclear warhead. There's not one in real life. We didn't launch any nuclear warheads into orbit on Earth for real that we know of anyway. But Apollo 6, the Apollo 6 Saturn V rocket had some trouble and it went off course. So. So this episode is strangely predictive of things quite a bit.
Yeah. Which is fed into when does the Star Trek universe sort of veer away from the reality that we know? And some people point to this episode as being one of the definitive ones.
There's your servo thing.
There it is.
Right. This is why you should always search the prisoners before you lock them up.
Yes.
You know, Star Trek has a history of that, all the way into TNG, where they put the Klingons in the brig, but the Klingons have knives and everything in their boots, and they're just like, it's great. And the Cushman book says in 1968 there were no H-bombs in orbit around Earth. This was a pretend situation invented to create an entertaining hour of TV and to deliver a warning. There was a good reason to be concerned because in the early 1960s, H-bombs were being flown around the planet on board long-range, high-altitude jets. Some had been lost. In one case, an Air Force jet experiencing mechanical problems had been forced to jettison its payload of nuclear weapons into the sea. Roddenberry, a former war pilot and now pacifist, feared that it was only a matter of time before a true disaster occurred. And so that's the reason this exists.
Well, I thought that there was sort of an international treaty in regards to not militarizing space.
Yes, that's true. And that treaty happened a couple years before, I guess. The memo didn't get to Gene Roddenberry, but it was too late to change things because it would have completely gutted the episode's premise. And then, I mean, I guess he just felt that the message of being careful with nuclear weapons is still relevant, even if you don't have them orbiting the planet. They're still not orbiting the planet, but they're in the atmosphere. They're on the jets. And then we saw what happened with Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strangelove. I thought you were just going to say Dr. Strange, and I was like, I don't remember that part.
And McCoy tells Kirk that Seven is human, but they don't bother to check the cat. I think because Spock has the cat, so they don't worry about what it might be.
Well, at least we know that he didn't mind meld with the cat. That might have been a step too far.
Yeah, but if he had, this would have been a different episode.
Yeah.
We would have got to meet Isis for real, instead of just seeing her for half a second at the end of the episode. Assignment Earth was designed as a pilot for a new series. Each week, Gary Seven, assisted by Roberta Lincoln, would be on a mission to save Earth itself. So this is from the Cushman book. Robert Lansing, for a 1989 interview with Starlog, said, what Gene had done was go to futurists and scientists and ask them what advanced societies out in space might do toward more primitive societies like ours. One of the futurists said they would probably kidnap children from various planets, take them to their superior civilizations, raise them and teach them and enlighten them, and then put them back as adults to lead their worlds into more peaceful ways. And Stone Racket says, Forrest Research objected to the script due to the space treaty that was signed by many nations, but Gene Roddenberry ignored their advice. Yes. Well, then he wouldn't have had an episode because he'd been working on this forever. Some people try to tie the series For All Mankind into explaining an alternate timeline for Star Trek. I haven't seen it, so I have no opinion. Feel free to educate the bear. I haven't seen it either, but I will be looking at it pretty soon. I can't wait to watch that.
And I have heard the same thing.
Darius Munchausen says, a Thor rocket carrying a W-49 thermonuclear warhead and an Mk-2 reentry vehicle was launched from Johnston Atoll in the Pacific Ocean, about 900 miles west-southwest of Hawaii. And the AI show says Roddenberry was right to be concerned about potential accidents from nuclear weapon or bombs or even systems, like the error at NORAD in 1979, for example, or even Able Archer, 83. And Stone Racket says, I was raised by aliens in my nightmares.
Fire in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get our little exposition dump with the computer, making sure that everybody is on board to know what Gary 7 is, even if our intrepid heroes from the Enterprise are not aware.
He's just the bestest ever. But the other two agents, 201 and 347, have died. So he has to take their mission.
It's all disappeared.
Yeah, they're gone. So he's got to do their job. He's Supervisor 194. And Robert Lansing said, at the time, Gene was a good friend, but I was a New York snob actor come out to Hollywood. Many folks in my self-perceived position didn't do Star Trek because it was considered a kid show, or a young show at any rate.
Huh. Well, and I was curious, just based on Lansing's involvement with 12 O'Clock High, I was wondering if there was a relationship between him and Gene. And so it's cool that there was, just in terms of their professionalism, even if their professions themselves didn't sort of match up. But I'm glad. It's always nice when you have the people who have developed those relationships in the same way that you had Gary Lockwood and DeForest Kelley and Leonard Nimoy and Shel Nichols.
Oh, yeah, that's something this episode sorely lacks, is DeForest Kelley.
Yeah, and I wonder if, in fact, the scenes with DeForest Kelley look like they were phoned in from other episodes, and they just edited them in. But I'm wondering about that attitude with Robert Lansing. I wonder if that severely hampered his career because he didn't really do much past the 60s.
Oh, but he was he was a semi-regular on Edward Woodward's The Equalizer, and also, I think he passed away in 92 or 94. So his after the 60s, he did some work in the 70s and 80s, but sort of nearing retirement at that point, I think.
Gotcha. I know I'm aware of that show. My mother used to watch it, so I am aware of it.
Oh, okay. Darius says Scotty R37 is correct. We currently have a ban on high altitude nuclear testing. Yeah, that happened before this episode was released, but once Gene found out about it, he was like, I'm gonna do it anyway. Darius also says the Starfish test was one of the 5 high altitude tests grouped as Operation Fishbowl, a series of tests in 1962, begun in response to the end of Soviet moratorium on testing. Snortopoopa says this barbarian planet, they don't even have seatbelts or airbags in their primitive ground vehicles, and they never use their turn signal. Was Robert Lansing a stage actor primarily? Asks the AI show. If so, that explains his attitude to TV.
Well, and he was part of an actors troupe in Fort Wayne, and he had done a bunch of radio work as well. And his first acting job was being on the stage play of Stalag 17, directed by Abel Ferrara.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty great. But one thing I do know is that I really like this Beta 5 computer. This also played by Barbara Babcock, because of course we're not going to have Majel Barrett play the computer this episode. At least not on the Beta 5 computer. It uses some components from the M5 computer from the Ultimate Computer.
I thought it looked great.
Mm-hmm. I did too. And someone said it. I was going to say the same thing. Who has time for Beta 5 snobbery?
Hmm.
Oh my
All right then.
goodness gracious. Thank you so much to Stone Racket. Here's some space credits for my fellow true trekker. Wow.
Very nice.
Thank you so much. Let's see.
We're getting pizza.
We're going to
No.
get pizza. Here, I'll play. What did I play there?
Yeah, I thought these things were supposed to be ragers.
I don't know. I just wanted to play something random for Stone Racket. I do have other clips from this episode, but oh man, they're all out of order. What the heck happened? What happened to my videos? They're all wacky. I guess some of them are missing. Why are they missing? I had them all here.
Oh, we're gonna have to do a cleanup.
It's impossible to hide a whole planet.
Impossible for you, not for.
Impossible for you, not for them. Okay, so I guess I'll just upload them as I need them because StreamYard decided to delete them. I don't know why I did that. That was weird. Anyway, thank you so much, Stone Racket. I'm floored by your generosity. That's so cool. I'll be sure to save those credits for something special. Darius says the nuclear space treaty was a major reason Ronald Reagan's Star Wars defense system would have used lasers to shoot down incoming missiles. Space lasers are A-okay.
Yeah. Freaking laser beams.
And Stone Racket says you're welcome. Good morning, Canadian Spider-Man. Hello again, Darius Munchausen. And Snorpoopa says the Beta 5 has been messing with Jill's data files. Yeah, it has. What is it? That snobby computer. So, humans? 6,000 years ago. So, for 6,000 years, these aliens have been abducting humans, I guess. Or 6,000 years ago, they were taken. I don't know how many times they took humans. Nothing about the aliens are really that clear. That's for sure.
Well, and that's one of the incomplete sort of storytelling frailties or faults of the episode is that they don't reveal a whole heck of a lot, but I'm assuming that they were looking to expand the lore and what was going on with Gary 7 and his organization as this series went on, which brings us back. Like a lot of the questions that we have about the character, we would have found out in the show, but if they didn't make the show, we'll never know. So it all becomes apocrypha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. So his mission is to prevent Earth from destroying itself before it can become peaceful. And Gary 7, played by Robert Lansing at 39, truly carried the status of a guest star. Like you said, he was in 12 O'Clock High. He was also in The Man Who Never Was in 1966.
Oh.
Let's see, what else is happening in this story? There's not a lot that's actually happening.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like as you mentioned in the synopsis, long story short, Gary 7 is there to sort of topple the rocket so that World War III doesn't happen. And the rest of it is all whether or not we can trust Gary 7 from the perspective of the Enterprise crew and the trials and tribulations that Gary goes through attempting to complete the mission of his deceased co-workers, I guess, contemporaries on Earth.
Yeah, exactly. He's looking for them. Yeah, right. That's what the ship is doing. It's looking for them, and Isis, the cat's just hopping around looking cute. Probably my favorite part of the episode is watching the kitty wander around.
Well, and
Well, I
that's
thought it
I
was
know
odd
that.
when he escaped the ship. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please, after you.
I thought it was odd that when he escaped the Enterprise, they couldn't find him based on the coordinates of where he beamed down, and they spend the whole almost the whole episode just wandering around the city looking for him.
Yeah, they can only get to within 1,000 meters of where he'd gone in terms of where he beamed down. They couldn't be as precise, so that is a oddity, definitely. So they only know vaguely where he is, and then they realize he's up high in the building. But that's basically what it is: searching for this, searching for that, finding this, finding that. There's not a lot of drama or intrigue or suspense.
Well, the suspense does come at the end of the
Okay,
episode.
okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's because they were hoping this would be a pilot. I think we're getting a lot of exposition up front.
Mm-hmm. They're just like, here's some new characters. You love Star Trek. Love these guys too, please.
Yeah.
Well, and this is interesting to me, but when doing the research, I didn't realize, because obviously we know the National Security Agency, the NSA, we know of it now. It's a thing. But apparently it was one of the worst kept secrets in the American intelligence community, because people knew of the NSA, but it wasn't actually officially revealed until 20 years after this episode aired.
Well, there's all mentioned back then of the OSI, and that existed.
Right. It's just, I find it entertaining that it's a government agency that everyone knew existed, but the government wouldn't acknowledge it. And, oh no, we're making TV shows about it. It's like, we can't acknowledge. We don't know. We have no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why it's important to pay attention to science fiction. It might be revealing things that are really happening.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So, yeah, they're just looking for the agents more, and we meet Roberta
Lincoln.
I think Scotty is looking for Gary 7 at some point, but I guess I didn't get the clip of that or the.
Well, he's using
Slides.
the incredibly convenient weather satellite to get images of Cape McKinley.
Right. The
That is
365.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the satellite, the weather satellite that is clearly a helicopter taking images of the launch pad.
Wow. Stone Racket says, true story. I was so impressed with this episode that I made a Beta 5 computer replica with cardboard and magic markers and placed it in the trunk of my model of a Ford LTD.
Wow.
Wow. That's incredible.
And the Ford LTD was a very big car.
That is a lot of dedication. In the 365 book says, in Assignment Earth, much of the action takes place at a fictional stand-in for the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, dubbed McKinley Rocket Base. However, the base exteriors seen in the episode were themselves a stand-in. The location Kirk and Spock beamed down to was actually the back of an office building on the Paramount lot, named for Marlene Dietrich, the beautiful German. Dietrich, sorry.
That's okay. She's an old actress not an old actress, but an actress from the old days.
It says she's the beautiful German actress who appeared in The Blue Angel and many other Paramount films over the decades. The Dietrich building is located just opposite the commissary, the studio's upscale dining facility. Just in case you happen to find yourself on Paramount lot.
Just don't anger Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, I need to find out if that story is really true, because I did mention that I don't really know what actually happened there. I'm sure something happened that day, but precisely the way it's told, I have no clue.
And we have voice-activated typewriter.
Yep, voice recognition.
Yes, that's the coolest thing. The 365 book has that quote, the best quote here. Well, how do you expect me to type with my nose? Oh wait, actually I think I have that here.
Well, how do you expect me to type with my nose?
Oh, actually I said that great. Did you?
did.
The machine typed everything it's typing everything I'm saying. Stop it. Stop it. Some people view the fanciful predictions foretold in old science fiction movies and television shows and say, "Where is the flying car? I was supposed to have one by the dawn of the 21st century." Other people, primarily writers, say, "Where is that amazing voice-activated electronic typewriter that types everything we say?" And so, actually, we do have text to speech now, but it's still not really that good.
That was the thing that I was paying attention to, is that it was doing all the punctuation as well. And I was like, oh, wouldn't that be nice?
It would be amazing. The typewriter is a Royal Emperor, which could type from a cassette tape recording of the text. And since this is the 60s, I'm guessing what that means is like a computer recording of text. And so it's just reading the text and then typing copying the text onto the paper. But I don't know for sure because I don't have one of these things. I couldn't really tell from the manual how that part works.
Well, and I didn't see a slide for it. I just wanted to mention it in passing because one of my favorite television shows of all time, Star Trek aside, is Mad Men. And there are a couple of shots that are taken from Gary Semon's perspective in the building, looking down on the New York City street, that they did eventually reuse for Mad Men because it takes place in the 60s and they wanted age appropriate or era appropriate cinematography of the time. And so I was like, I had seen the view and I was like, that looks familiar because it's weird. I looked it up.
Mm-hmm.
I looked it up and I was like, oh man, that's from Star Trek. And so it's nice to know that there's a Mad Men reference in this episode, or a Star Trek reference in an episode of Mad Men.
Also, Man from U.N.C.L.E., I think uses those
makes sense.
Vantage points too.
Well, and I thought like a lot of the images of the fictional McKinley rocket base, I thought that was all just like old stock footage. And I found out in the research that, that was allowed or presented or given to Gene Roddenberry to make the episode. So it was new footage at the time. I thought it was
new footage by NASA. Yes.
Which is
Apollo
cool.
missions. Yes. And of course, I'm leaving this one here because since the beginning of Star Trek, of course, we've had the computer being able to communicate with the computer, like Alexa, from the very beginning. But this is the first time we have it in like a little cube form, making it like an Alexa that we actually do have now. Of course, not as smart as that quite yet.
But always on and always listening, and it will add to your shopping list at a moment's notice.
Right. If you tell her you're running out of milk, it'll Instacart.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Garr had okay, so it says that Terry Garr had an unpleasant time filming this because of her skirt. I don't know much. Yeah, I think that was like from an interview from Starlog, but I haven't read that interview yet. She says in interviews since she has refused to talk about Star Trek in any way. Like at some point, when I read about her from the Cushman book, it seemed like she was real excited to be on the show. And then later on in her career, she decided she hated Star Trek.
From what I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that this episode is what got her the job on Young Frankenstein, which that's what set her career off.
Well, and also apparently she was in 1964. She was in a one of the beach party movies. I don't know which one specifically, but there was sort of a contradictory report on this, and it was like, oh, I didn't like how they were making my skirt so short, and it was like, yeah, but you were in that movie with the see-through swimming gown, so I don't know, man. It depends. It depends on where you pick and choose your modesty, but I take her word for it. If she felt that she was being mistreated or she had an uncomfortable experience, it's too bad. My biggest thing is that she wasn't just negative about the episode itself, but apparently she would somewhat disparage fans of the show as well, which is a little offside.
It is a little bit. I'm sorry if she had a bad time too, but I don't know. The AI show says sci-fi films and TVs sometimes seem predictive because if writers do their research and become knowledgeable, they can thus extrapolate and have predictive outcomes. And Snortopoopa says Robert Lincoln later traveled to Transylvania disguised as a local peasant, where she learned to roll in the hay and show off.
Roll in the hay. And show off her knockers, yes. Oh.
Dan Draper approves of this live stream. Says,
Donald Draper.
Oh, Don Draper, excuse me. I don't watch Mad Men.
Not yet.
Not yet. I have a sneaking feeling that something more than a short skirt happened to her in the show. Yeah, that's when I say I don't know. Anything would be speculation. She didn't ever actually talk about it. She was just angry at Star Trek fans, it seemed. and Terry Garr was the first woman to appear on American television in a bikini. Really?
I wonder if she had the belly button rule.
Anyway, let's get past Alexa here. Beta 5.
But at least the writing for the show and how Beta 5 assesses Roberta Lincoln there, it is complimentary. She has an above average IQ.
Yeah, although erratic.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. It seemed like, okay, so early on when she was just getting the role, she was appreciative of it. But Jean got into everything, said Robert Justman about Roddenberry's hands-on approach to producing this episode. Sets, props, special effects, casting actors, casting of a black pussycat, and costumes, especially costumes. The clothes worn by guest star and potential new series lead Robert Lansing were not a problem. He wore what any self-respecting alien visitor would wear, a Brooks Brothers suit and a sincere tie. But owing to Jean's odd tastes in ladies' ready-to-wear, Lansing's co-star Terry Garr made a fashion statement that set back haute couture, I don't know what that is, at least several hundred light years. I watched resignedly as Jean, up to his old tricks, kept costume designer Bill Theiss busy. Taking a tuck and a trim there, Terry understood the machinations of show business, having come from a performing family. So she didn't object when, just before her scene on stage, Jean went to work on her costume again. He kneeled down, gathered up her already scant shirt, and told Bill Theiss, "It's too long, Bill." Terry rolled her eyes. So that's where that started. And the computer... Oh, the computer's just now finding out that the ancients are dead. I thought it did that earlier.
Sounds like the mission's a failure.
Yeah, right. Gary has to take it over. And this is one of the few episodes where Kirk and Spock are behind us in knowledge of everything. They're just like,
Yes.
it's like they have no idea what's going on, but we already know. And they don't know to trust Gary, but we know he's good. So all of the actual conflict is like not really conflicting because the audience doesn't feel it, just the characters. So I don't know, it doesn't work for me. But it's not bad.
And Jack Stafford is here in the chat.
Oh, he is. So he is. Jack Stafford, hello. Also, Canadian Spider-Man says, ooh, French.
Haute couture. I don't know what it means either, but yeah, let me hear. You know, the question's been asked. Let's find out.
Mm-hmm.
I think it means fashion.
Yeah, Justin... Bob Justman was getting a little fancy with this terminology. And hello to Mr. Brown Alliance.
Hey, Mr. Brown. Haute couture, expensive, fashionable clothes produced by leading fashion houses.
Mm-hmm. And so here's Gary using his transporter with the smoke and the fire. Yeah. And so this part of the episode is a little bit slow. We see the rocket base, and we've seen the rocket, the footage, the NASA footage that they allowed Star Trek to use for this episode. And she calls the police. And I think this is weird because Spock, she's causing all this mayhem, and Spock never uses the neck pinch on her. I don't understand why not. It seems like the obvious thing to do because she's not being very helpful.
Because she still needed to be part of the plot.
But it's okay. We can forget about all that because here's Finnegan.
Yes. Finnegan from Shore Leave. There he be. Ah, Jimmy, me boy.
Yeah, there he is. There he is. There he is. Bruce Mars, who appeared as the rascally Finnegan in Shore Leave, returned for a smaller role, but one that is nonetheless a delight. He's Charlie, one of the two policemen who accidentally get beamed onto the Enterprise. Mars said, I had known Mark Daniels from before, from out in New York. He wasn't a good friend, but I had known him. I got a call from the casting guy, Joe Da Costa. Wait, I'm saying this wrong. Joe D. Agosta. And he said, Bruce, you doing anything right now? I said, no. And he said, would you like to make a few bucks to feed your dog and pay your rent? And I said, yes. Because, man, I was broke. I was working in construction and digging ditches trying to make ends meet. So I went there for one day and made a few $100. And it paid the rent, and my dog Butch ate wonderfully for at least 2 weeks. I think that's a nice story. And oh, there's something in the private chat. Okay. Okay, well, we'll see you in a minute. Hello, presenters. Hail chat, says Mr. Brown Alliance. Sort of poop says hot means high in French, so probably means lift the hem higher. The blue flame, yes. The AI show says I nicknamed this episode Radman, largely because it's set in 60s New York City. About 10 years later, Terry Garr stars again in another sci-fi classic, Close Encounters. Love her comedic style. So Finnegan descended from a 20th century Irish-American NYPD cop, probably related to the Reagans. Yeah, right. Charlie is Finnegan's ancestor. And so the rocket storage buildings at the rocket base were buildings on the Paramount lot with NASA footage of Apollo rockets and matted in above them. This is the third and last episode using the Paramount office buildings exteriors for locations, after bread and circuses, and patterns of force. And even launch director Cromwell's car matches the car seen in one of the stock footage sequences. So that's kind of cool that they matched the cars. Oh yeah, this guy's taking a nap. The little servo's used to, he can use the servo to put people to sleep, but they're actually very happy about it, so he's not hurting them.
Right, they over the top want to make sure that he's benevolent and he's not a bad guy. So they
Yeah,
even
exactly.
Got, smiles on their faces.
Yeah, even Spock doesn't have that. When you get a neck pinch, you're not smiling. So, oh, and I got his name here, Lincoln Demian, as Sergeant, whom Gary Seven puts to sleep, was 42. His familiar face was often seen on camera from 61 to 74, mostly in westerns. But I don't know him. I know him here. Okay, so this is just a whole sequence of him getting to the rocket to try to rewire it and make it malfunction, or to get access to it and make it to where he can control it. He needs to control this rocket from the Beta 5 computer later. And well, in case you forgot, the Enterprise is still around.
Well, now they suddenly lit it up.
Yeah, right.
Well, and in all the other scenes, it's like they only propped up a couple lights. It's like everything on the Enterprise was an afterthought.
Yeah, you almost forget that it's even around, but they're checking out the launch pad.
Very slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember last night when you were saying the kids were sad that their Lost in Space episode was preempted by a rocket launch? Half
Yeah,
this episode
Gemini.
is half this episode is a rocket launch.
Yes. See how, like, when they showed Kirk and Spock, how it's just one light lit on them?
Hmm.
They don't have the Enterprise lit up with all the different colors like it normally does. It's like their focus was not on the Enterprise at all, even down to the crew. They didn't have it properly lit like they do on the other episodes.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were just on the ship, but nothing happened.
No, but I'm saying it's just one
Mhm.
spotlight.
Right.
Normally
Yes,
they have all the
I
color
did get that.
gels and all that
Well,
going on.
Well, production and story wise, it's just the Enterprise. It's there because it has to be.
Yep.
I think the first draft of the script didn't have the Enterprise or Star Trek characters at all, so it kind of just got shoved in.
Well, and there's a lot of holes in the plot. I guess out of
Definitely.
convenience. I mean, because the first thing they could have done is tell Scotty, can you scan for a cat or a feline?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, that would have been great.
I don't.
I agree completely.
Yeah, it's just,
They underutilized the Enterprise, and it's almost like, why was it even there? They should have just made the Enterprise malfunction. All
they
of its
made
systems. None of our systems work because
right.
that's what happens in this
Yeah,
episode.
maybe. Yeah,
Nothing is
Gary
working.
7 would have had some kind of a way of blocking their sensors. Something that would
Exactly.
have
He could
helped.
use his servo in the engineering
Uh-huh.
to cause some
And
mayhem, and that would have helped.
it makes them all look incompetent, I guess.
You're absolutely right. It does. But it's just to elevate Gary, and that's not good.
Yeah.
But it's his show, I guess.
Yes, the incredible weather satellite footage.
Yeah, and of course, again, Spock doesn't use his neck pinch here, so they get captured.
He got performance anxiety after it didn't work on Gary 7.
Oh, is that what it was?
That's
Okay.
it must have been.
All right. Okay, fair enough. Oh, we missed this scene. I didn't do this one. I have to load them because my
What are
streamer
you?
my streamer got rid of some of my videos, but it did have this one.
It is now 60 minutes to launch.
So you could see there the mat of the footage, the NASA footage over the Paramount Studio buildings. Let's see, number 5. So I'm also missing my 5 video. And here it is. It's processed.
You just sit right down right there and have a little nap.
Let's see what else I have here.
Intruder alert. Intruder alert.
Okay, so I'm also missing 7, 8, and 11. Let me bring them in right now so I don't have to do it later. 7,
And we get Jimmy doing double
11.
duty as the mission control voice.
Oh man, yeah, Jimmy Doohan does a lot of voice work. Even before we get to the animated series.
Yeah, and the guy's in charge of security there with the headset on was in the Twilight Zone episode of The Good Life with Billy Mooney.
Oh,
Nice.
the Twilight Zone episode. That's the one where the cornfield episode with Billy Miller.
Yes,
right?
and this is the guy that had his head turned into a Jack in the Box.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good episode. I like that one. Mhm.
They're males. Oh, okay. Thank you.
He's safe. And you're safe, my little green friend.
Oh, the rocket stock footage in this episode is of Saturn V's. Footage of the rocket on the ground is a combination of SA-500F test vehicle, the only Saturn V to feature USA markings on the third stage, and Apollo 6, the only Saturn V launched with a white service module. Footage of the rocket launching is of Apollo 4. I like this. I like this. This almost became the thumbnail too. I like this. That was my second choice for the thumbnail. Both with cats. But I had to go with Spock because I love Spock.
Of course.
Captain's log supplemental. Spock and I are in custody. Even if we talked, they wouldn't believe us. We're powerless to stop Mr. 7 or prevent the launch, or even be certain if we should. I have never felt so helpless.
Hey, Jim's in the chat. Hey, Jim.
Oh, hello, Jim. Oh yeah, there's a chat.
And Bird of Prey 5, Kapla.
Applaud, Bird of Prey 5. There's Gary trying to get control of the rocket. A Brooks Brothers suit. Nice choice, says the AI show.
I tried to get one. They're expensive.
Terry Garr always reminded me of Phoebe from Friends, says Jack Stafford.
Didn't she come back in, or not? She does appear as Phoebe's mom at one point, doesn't she?
Oh my God, does she? That is perfect then. I only watched Friends when I was little, and I tried to watch it when I grew up, and it doesn't hold up when you're growing up, and you actually, I don't know, not for me anyway, unfortunately. Canadian Spider-Man says, "Oh, French hot couture." Oh yeah, you looked that up for us. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we were. A Highway 949 exists in Pennsylvania and Kentucky. Take your pick.
I would go with Kentucky just because, like, I didn't understand how Gary Seven's office was in Manhattan based on that he was going to the rocket base, which has to be part of the reason why Cape Kennedy or Cape Canaveral are
Florida.
Florida, because it has to be closer to the equator to make it easier to launch things. And so I never understood the geography of this.
I don't even. The AI show says, Bill and Spock look great in their threads in this episode. They could have easily fit into Mad Men. And Stone Racket says, Gary 7 refers to Isis as doll. Never do that to your kitty cats. I call my kitties Sweetie and Precious, which are far more acceptable terms to cats. Well, yeah, if you call them dolls, they're going to be afraid they're going to put them in doll clothes, which is the worst thing for a cat.
You call him Dr. Jones, doll.
Star Poop, says, I'm sure the Enterprise to focus a camera directly at a planet and get a close-up of ants on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Had it been like a low orbit probe, I would have been more forgiving of it. But Scotty does say, he says that we can tap into a weather satellite. And I was like, well, that's okay, I guess.
Yeah,
but
that's how they get close enough to it. That's true.
And this is really cool. Jack Stafford says, James Doohan is the only member of the original cast I got to meet and took a pic with as a kid. Such a kind man. One of the great ambassadors of Trek.
Yeah. And hello, Jim. The AI show says that video capture made this entire episode seem like that darn cat in outer space. No, yeah, that's this episode to me. The first time watching this, I was just like, "Who's this cat? Why is this cat so smart? I love this cat." And then it was a sexy lady. James Caserta says it's incredibly funny, but not worth it. Oh, okay. Gary 7 has a transporter. True enough.
No, and I get that in terms of the geography of how he gets from place to place. It's just, I don't know. It's strange. And well, how did the two other agents die? They die in a car crash. Why did they need to get into a car? They got the transporter thing.
Well, because they're undercover, maybe. I don't know. But you're right. It makes no sense. But I do want to say hello to Retro Nerd Girl. Hello.
Hey.
So awesome to see you here.
Hello there.
Make sure everybody's subscribed to Retro Nerd Girl. She's got some amazing content. Well, short form videos that are well produced and really fun live streams with great discussions. Let's see. Oops. I messed up. I messed up with your link there. Let me fix that. Grabbed some of Dalek's. Rocket thrusters engaged. Hello there. I'm in the wrong franchise again, says Pod Racing Palpatine. Hey, I'm glad you got lost. Thanks for being here. It makes no sense. The Chewbacca defense. You must acquit. The agents were probably having Kirk's moment and enjoying the old-fashioned technology, and like Kirk, were very bad drivers. Oh, there you go. Yeah,
I
like a
accept it.
piece of the action. And that does make sense. Lansing recalls she had a terrible time with this bit where she had to hit me with the box and knock me out. She was so nervous that finally I said, "Terry, hit me." And she gave me such a clobber that she nearly did knock me out. Jean said it didn't look right and we had to do it again. So the AI show says, "Gotta go. I give this a B. One of the most watchable episodes of Star Trek for me for some reason. Terry Gart and Robert Lansing are quite good. It makes sense to do an episode in the 60s US. Thank you, the AI show, and I hope you have a lovely day."
Have a great day.
And so Gary 7 is using the Beta 5 to control the rocket to get it to malfunction to make it go off course. And I don't think we got to the part where Roberta hits Gary in the head. I think she's about to do that in a second here. Got a bolt. Enjoyed the conversation, Jill. Thanks for hosting. All y'all be safe. Have fun. Take care of your crew and rock. Oh, thank you so much,
Very
DJ
cool.
Play Nice. That's such a cool name. I hope you have fun. Canadian Spider-Man says, "Is that the same cat from Bewitched?" It was several cats. From 3 to 7 cats. We're unsure of the number. And so Gary's got to stop this rocket before it detonates. And so that it doesn't start World War III. And this is the only episode in the second season to have Gene Roddenberry as a producer instead of executive producer because he was very hands-on for this episode. He rewrote Art Wallace's script and was heavily involved in production, set props, casting, and costumes. Much to the annoyance of Robert Thesis, the costume designer. Oh, and we get to see Uhura and Chekhov and Sulu for a few minutes.
And I love this because she's listening to broadcasts from all over the world, which establishes that she knows different languages.
She is listening to them, yes.
But yeah, in terms of being multilingual, you're absolutely right, Bob.
Yeah, they seem to forgot that later on, unfortunately.
Well, being able to tap into them and understand them are different things.
No, but I never liked that joke where she didn't know Klingon. She should have known Klingon.
Well, the whole
With
problem with that joke isn't just that she doesn't, whether or not she knows Klingon. It's because even if the universal translator is having difficulty, you should still be able to access the computer library, which should have the dictionary on it. You shouldn't have to bring out these actual textbooks and have them all over the place. It's silly.
yeah, wasn't that Star Trek 5,
6.
Yes.
6?
Oh, was it 6?
Yeah.
Oh, it was 6. Yes, you're right. Mm. And so her opens a channel to his communicator. Yeah, that's the whole point of the scene. There we go. Oh, we get to see them for a little while. They're still here. Pod Racing Palpatine says, is that the cat from Squire Gothams? I don't know. No. Or the same cat for Cat Spa. That is likely. That's kind of funny. I didn't think about that. Cat Spa on production order is the first episode we reviewed for season 2. So the first episode in production and the last episode both have black cats.
The kitten season.
Mm. Wow, this was 50 years ago. With moon rockets, jets, and satellites, 50 years before this, man couldn't even fly. Progress has really plateaued, says Jack Stafford.
Well, and that's one of the things that that Gary 7 does say. He says that the technological advancements of the species have progressed faster than the social and political understandings at the same era.
Yeah, and Gary thinks he needs to teach humanity a lesson. So he wants to make sure that this thing detonates 100 miles above ground so that everybody sees it. Because he's armed it. He's armed it now. Everybody at the base is trying to get it to detonate so it doesn't hurt anybody. Morgan Jones plays Colonel Nesvig back in that base that we were just at. He appeared in 100 films and TV programs beginning in 1952, including Forbidden Planet. And Don Kiefer played Cromwell, the Mission Control Security Supervisor. Without the mustache, he can be seen as Don Hollis in It's a Good Life. Oh, yeah, you told me this one already. And the famous Twilight Zone episode. Okay. And so that's the point where now that everyone's distracted at the base, I guess that's where Kirk and Spock actually finally escape back to the ship.
Nothing like a good old nuclear weapon malfunction to distract everyone in the room with you.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I got it wrong. Kirk has Scott beam him and Spock to Seven's office. That's where they go. That makes more sense. And the scientists cannot self-destruct the rocket. So they're like, call the president.
Yes, thank you. I know how to open it.
Oh, I don't have number 9. I still have to get another video. I don't know why StreamYard decided to delete my videos. Made things no fun.
Frackin'.
Was it certain ones or all of them? How did...
About half of them got taken out.
Wow.
Because I put them all in order. I do it before the show.
I had him, and something yanked him away.
Yeah, that happened to my videos. But in this case, it's Roberta who yanks away Gary, because Scotty gets a lock on him and he's pulling him back to the ship, I guess, to keep him as prisoner because he's messing around with nuclear weapons, I guess. I don't know really what's going on. But but Roberta intercepts it and brings Gary back to his office. And he's like, I wasn't finished yet. But he realizes that she actually saved him from being stuck on the Enterprise. But now she doesn't trust him. And so she turns the servo on him and kind of stalls him. This is the suspense and stuff that you mentioned earlier. This is where the episode picks back up. Just in time for the last 10 minutes. So I like the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes of the episode. The best. Let's see what the chat says. Oh, Matt G sent a tip for $1.08. On a related note, what's everyone's thoughts on when a TV show does a backdoor pilot episode for another show? A lot of times it's really annoying and goes nowhere, aside from some exceptions.
This is certainly the most famous of the ones that I'm aware of. I know that like sitcoms used to do it all the time. What was it? Family Matters is a spin-off of Perfect Strangers.
Married with Children tried it, and it was really bad when they did it.
Yeah.
What did they try to spin off?
Some show with a guy and his son, two Italian
really?
people. I don't remember what it was supposed to be called, but it was very, very unfunny.
Oh,
I think it was called.
That's kind of funny.
It was called Top of the Heap with I believe it was Joe Bologna and Matt LeBlanc. Right.
Yeah, I think so.
I remember seeing 2 episodes of it.
Yeah. Oh wow! I really
Chips
like Married
did
with
it,
Children.
And the show Chips did it with 2 female cops. Yeah, they're usually. I can't think of any time that it was actually a success. Maybe All in the Family. It had a lot of successful spin-offs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Mork and Mindy.
Jeffersons and all that, yeah.
Mork and Mindy was spun off from Happy Days. But I don't know if they did like a full backdoor pilot. But then again, I guess Mork showing up would have been strange.
Mork did show up on Happy Days.
Mm-hmm.
First. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if he was like a guest star and because he was so popular, they decided to spin off the show, or if that was actually intended as a backdoor pilot.
Yeah, I think that's what I would have to find out is how many backdoor pilots were successful.
I'm just impressed how many times we can say backdoor.
Well, Kirk wants Spock to detonate the rocket, but Spock can't be accurate with it. And he says that Kirk has to use his intuition to tell whether Gary is trustworthy. And so
the single spotlight. See, there's so much this episode is shot with just a single light. Mm-hmm. It's like it just feels rushed.
Yeah, and yet it costs $200,000.
That's because of the cast.
The cast.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of that went to Robert Lansing.
Yeah, and just a minute ago she was saying that she didn't trust Gary, and then when Kirk and Spock get there, all of a sudden she's like, "Trust him, he's perfect."
Yeah.
So that was a quick turnaround. And of course, Gary 7, being the super cool, awesome person he is able to detonate the rocket just in time. And Kirk says that they were supposed to help all along. They were meant to be there to help history along.
Ah, the good old predestination paradox.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is a malleable timeline episode, but that is a story for another podcast. Let's see what It exploded exactly 104 miles above the Earth. I would think there'd still be some radiation fallout from
Mm.
that close to the ground, but I don't
Yeah, I would think so too. EMP.
know.
I'm sorry, I just touched that button right there, and then wow.
And then pow. See, I think what it was is that it let me upload them, and then it let me upload too many, and that's why I'm having trouble with it.
Maybe there's a limit.
Yeah, there's a limit. There's 100 limit video limit.
You've got to let me finish what I've started, or in 6 minutes, World War III begins.
Well, that's an interesting little thing that I noticed, because when we looked at the commercial for this week's episode, it's on close up of Gary Seven saying that, and then in the actual episode, it is from behind with the dramatic tension, and then it does cut to a close up, and he's just sort of like sternly looking at Miss Lincoln. And so I just alternate takes. I thought it was kind of cool, just in terms of that, in terms of the production and promotion.
Hmm. So Victoria Vitri, seen far too briefly as Isis in human form, was 23. She worked steadily in television from 1962 through 1975 under the stage name Angela Dorian. After appearing in a photo spread in Playboy magazine as Miss September 1967, Dorian changed her performing name to Victoria Vitri. She was hot off that issue of Playboy when Assignment Earth filmed. By the time the episode first aired, Vitri had been named Playmate of the Year, Sex Sells, and top billing in films such as When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth and Invasion of the Bee Girls, 1973, followed.
Now, are you sure on the actress who played it? Because there were conflicting conflicting reports as to which actress did portray human Isis. There were two names, and I don't have them off the top of my head right now.
Lansing said, I don't know. Lansing says oh, okay. Let me see. Let me see what I have here. I don't know. I don't have anything. It says Victoria.
Let me see.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, April Tatro. Is that who you referenced?
April? Huh?
The uncredited human form of Isis was portrayed by actress, dancer, and contortionist April Tatro. But previously, fans had speculated that the briefly seen human form of the cat Isis was played by actress Victoria Vitri. This had been repeated so often that many articles and websites treat that as fact. However, Vitri herself confirmed that she was not in the episode.
Oh my goodness. Oh, really? Well, but this is actually in like a really good book. This is the Mark Cushman book, and it's
well,
wrong.
And to follow that up, her identity was unknown until 2019. So you'd have to check the publication date of the book, when the Trek Files podcast cited a production call sheet for extras dated the 5th of January, 1968, and host Larry Nemechek interviewed her, April Tatro, for confirmation.
Okay, let me see what I have here. If I have anything on it. What does the 365 book say?
But I knew it had been somewhat of a mystery, and I just wasn't sure if...
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I wonder why this false information has been going around so much that it's in really good books. I'm sorry, guys, for misrepresenting who she was.
Oh, you don't have to apologize.
Yeah, but I mean, I like for what I say to be right. So it's not Victoria. It's April what?
Vetri? But yeah, no, the error was made and quickly corrected. So apology rescinded. We knew we were wrong. We did it anyway, but we did correct the record. So you're welcome.
I'm trying to see if I have that anywhere here, but I don't think so. I think the book was just wrong.
Sort of authority is just because when you got Larry Nemechek as your confirming reference, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you're right. I do believe you. Okay. What was her last name?
Oh heavens!
Tetro.
No, that was the wrong one.
Vetri. Victoria Vetri.
Victoria Vetri. Isn't that the wrong name?
No, Victoria Vetri.
You said it was April.
So April Tatro. You're right. April Tatro.
April Tatro. Okay, so April Tatro is the one. I want to just put it in the notes here so I know.
Mm-hmm.
Not Victoria. That's crazy that this information is in all of these very official texts. And it's wrong. So
there we go. Franco Walker.
Franco Walker says he might not have been on the same studio. Why not? And Matt G says I used rabbit ears on our 2 extra Sony TV sets in 1970, but our main television console has that outside antenna connection.
I loved seeing those as a kid because you knew those people had the good TVs.
Backdoor Pilot sounds like slang for something.
True.
Oh, Franco says Laverne and Shirley was a spinoff from Happy Days. So there you go. First TV spinoff, Wanted Dead or Alive, from Robert Culpa's Trackdown.
Robert Culp.
Captain, we could say that they're going to have some interesting experiences in store for them.
Right.
Yeah, only Kirk and Spock know about that because we never will see it. Canadian Spider-Man says 100 miles is a long way. Try crawling on your knees that far, carrying a Wookiee. Yeah, radiation goes a long way though.
See, it's the EMP that really,
isn't 100 kilometers considered space? What?
I don't know. I don't know at which point you leave Earth's atmosphere that it is considered to be outer space.
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm. But Jack Stafford.
It says technically, okay, so the space station is 240 miles. So that's obviously space. Let's see. So if you'd like to stick with mainstream, the atmosphere space border should be no higher than 117 miles. Oh, okay. Okay. So maybe 100 miles would be fine. And Stone Racket says it is April Tatro as Isis in human form. Thank you guys for correcting me. Thank you, Scotty R37, for correcting me. I was trusting a book that I thought I could trust, but I guess I could trust it for most things. But for that one thing, it did get it wrong. I hope they released.
Apparently, the book was been published before the truth came out.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. April Tatro. And Stone Racket says, I made this correction at the start of the chat. I'm sorry I missed it. Thank you for helping. And Snortopoopus Cuber says, April Tatro was a contortionist, which probably came in handy during this casting call. Oh, Snorty. And welcome to Alan Trioscillator, the extra talent call sheet names. April Tatro as one cat girl, last on the casting sheet.
Well, and apparently there was an idea later on in Voyager to reintroduce the supervisors and the same alien race but they dismissed it because it would have been like, okay, so now the Voyager crew can get home because they can do the thousands of light year transporting.
Exactly. Yeah, so you don't mess with the Gary 7 lore unless you want to be way overpowered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lansing says, the fun with this show was working with the cats. We had 3 black cats. The cats would have a certain propensity. One would like somebody, would want to follow them around, so that day you would release the cat. That would probably do what you wanted it to do. And of course, Bijo Trimble thinks there were 7 cats. So there's some contention there with the number of cats. I'm sure it would be funny to talk to her about that because she's still around.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was on set for this episode. And I'm surprised I had as much to say about this episode as I did. Because I didn't have, because not a lot happens in it.
Well, again, mostly just character introductions and establishment of mission for Gary 7.
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the first 10 minutes on the Enterprise, but once Gary escapes, it stops being a Star Trek episode. I know that Kirk and Spock are inserted in the middle and everything, and we see some of the crew, but everybody's mostly ineffectual until the final scene. And even then, they're like, okay, Spock can't do this either. This was mostly a Gary episode, in which my favorite character is the cat, who we now know was played by April
Tatro.
April Tatro. I couldn't remember that. Because she's presented as so intelligent, but we don't find out to the end that's because she's also humanoid. So, I don't know. Gary 7's kind of cool, but why he can withstand a neck pinch? I don't know. I guess by virtue of not knowing how the aliens have enhanced him, I really have no way to question anything. Maybe that's something we would have learned about had the series picked up.
Well, and considering Terry Garr's distaste for her experience, I'm wondering if it just would have gone straight to being Isis and Gary as opposed to Miss Lincoln. But there is a request from the chat by Stone Racket.
Our record tapes show, although never generally revealed.
Oh,
that is the extent of the clip that we have of Isis.
Oh. What was the request?
Oh, to take a gander at Isis.
Okay, I can do better than I can get a still for that.
Cool.
Cat number 5 was played by Schrodinger's cat. This is Nerdabupus. And Stone Racket loves cats. I wonder how the storeroom is doing. To Stone Racket. Uh-oh. Cthulhu calls. Well, he's gonna have to hold on. Well, Cthulhu can do whatever he likes. I love you guys, but I want to talk a bit about this episode. We need to review it. We need to review this episode, and I don't really plan on going anywhere for a while. I shall not be rushed. But actually, I gotta get a kitty cat. I had put away my slides, but I'll bring them back for Stone Racket.
Pardon me. Well, while we're retrieving the clips, aside from, of course, the Bird of Prey rule, if it's original series Star Trek, they're all A's. I am going to say that this one's a B, just because there is less Star Trek and more Gary 7 stuff. I still like it, but as a Star Trek episode, as pointed out by Pop Culture Curator, and the way that it is shot and the way that it is presented, it doesn't, and Jill mentioned it as well, it doesn't feel very much like a Star Trek episode. It's obviously something to sort of hedge bets for a future television production. But it's a strong B. I'd say it's a B+, because I do love Terry Garr, even though she didn't enjoy her experience, and Robert Lansing is just a dude that I know from a couple of television shows, and he is he's one of those classic 60s man's man gravitas television stars and film. But I do enjoy his performance in this. I'm glad we didn't get an Assignment Earth television show, but I'm sad that we never actually revisited in any subsequent material that matters the origins of Gary 7.
Yeah, that's a good review, Scotty. I had a few more clips. I didn't play them. I'm going to play them real quick.
Mr. Seven, I want to believe you. I do. I mean, I know this world needs help.
Captain, he can only guess. Will you please let me do my job? Our record tape show, although never generally revealed.
Oh, yeah, that's the one he played. Okay, then that's all of them then. And so yeah, I give this one C+. And I don't know. I kind of wouldn't mind if this might have been a TV series. I might have checked it out because a friend of mine has been getting me into spy-fi shows like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and The Avengers. And so this might be interesting. I don't know. It might have been fun if they would give Gary a little bit more foibles, get him to make some more mistakes, get a little more conflict, a little more kind of suspense, and just up the storytelling a little bit. I think it might not be a bad series. And so we had communication since the beginning of Star Trek, but I liked seeing it in the little green cube form because it reminds me of Alexa. And I also thought the talk-to-text technology of the typewriter was very cool. However, the episode kept the plot really, really simple, with Gary just having to detonate the nuclear warhead. And he does, and there's a cat. And the Gary 7 series never happens. This was the Gary show, so we don't really get much of our trio or any of the characters we really love, especially the part that I miss the most is we don't get the trip back to the future. That happens off screen. I especially enjoy the idea of aliens trying to help rather than have them be villains, which is something that comes from Star Trek. And Gary is cool, but now I just want to watch the Questor tapes and see how that is. But this one felt a little bit one note for me to get much higher of a score. But it was all right. What do you think, Pop Culture Curator?
It sounds like we were all pretty much close on this one. I gave it a B-. And once again, that's because, like I mentioned before, Terry Garr, I think she did really good, considering this was early in her career. I honestly don't think it would have been a very good series if it would have been greenlit. I can see why it was not greenlit. Like I said, I can't see, if I was the network saying, well, how many scripts can you get out of this? How many variations can you get on this plot? And it just seemed like it would have been very limiting. If they were trying to sell this as a new series, as a pilot, they really should have added a lot more intrigue to it. Maybe some action. There seemed like a lot of exposition to build up the characters for an episode that we'll never see. So it's too bad they couldn't have added a little more to it and then save the exposition for if the show would have been greenlit. Then they could have saved it all for then. But I think that would have been, I think that's its failure. I like the episode overall. It's not one of my favorite Star Trek episodes, but I would say it's down there on the bottom of one of my least favorite. So, but I'm being kind because of Terry Garr, and I know it has nothing to do with it, but I really feel sorry for her for getting MS, and she had a lot of trouble there later in her life. And she was very funny. She was a naturally funny comedian. So if it wasn't for this, we would never have gotten her in Young Frankenstein and Close Encounters and many other things. But that's my review. And I have to mention, I did not like the fact that the Enterprise crew were sidelined. I mean, it was so obvious. Many of the scenes that took place aboard the Enterprise were even shot with one spotlight. I mean, it was very obvious. They didn't even bother lighting the sets. It was like they called the actors on the show for one day, I'm actually guessing what they did is they filmed it in between other episodes. And like when they showed McCoy in the lab just sitting there with that green light behind him, it just didn't look right. And you could tell that I really think they shot all the Enterprise scenes around other episodes and then just placed them into this one. It just seemed disjointed, I guess. Disjointed. And the Enterprise crew were not the normal selves. They seemed incompetent. The Enterprise itself was displayed as incompetent. The fact that they couldn't track him down, the fact that they took so long just to find him on board that missile, or on that missile, try to sabotage it. I don't know. It doesn't gel. But I guess that's my review.
That's a very good review. And just a C plus. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. And Pop gives it a B minus, and Scotty R37 a B. But Mecha Cropper gives it an A, and Snortopoopus also gives it an A. Fun, quirky, timely, and Terry Gar. Yeah, it was very timely. There was some very spooky, creepy predictions that came true. Darius says, I do her kitty style.
And I'd ask you to stop making that racket on the fence in the middle of the night.
Snortopoopus says, trivia. Robert Lansing was replaced as series lead of 12 O'Clock High's second season. The official reason is that they wanted a younger looking character, but his replacement was 2 years older. And Darius says, by which I mean, I'd let her make me dinner. Then I'd disappear for 13 hours. Right, because that's what cats do. You feed them, and then they go hide and take a nap. Darius says, I've got some catnip for her. In my pants pocket. It's expired. Stone Racket says, what?
I'm so surprised by the fan club for ISIS. Good for you guys. This is a passionate group of men who are enjoying the feline form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is a good costume. It's crazy. It's just shown for a couple of seconds. They should have given her something.
Well, and remember, for some inexplicable reason, Roberta was the only one able to see her, even though they were all in the same room. So who knows?
Really? I thought everybody could see her. I mean,
well, nobody else even mentioned it, not even Kirk and Spock.
Oh, right. They don't see her in her human form. They're all distracted, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, I guess. Right.
Stone Racket says, nope. It was the very last episode shot for the second season, and it went 1 day over schedule. Yes, it is. It was in production order, the very last episode. Oh, okay.
That's why I'm guessing that the cast of Star Trek was already released for vacation. And they shot a lot of their episodes probably, or they shot their scenes probably previously during other episodes.
Canadian Spider, well, I don't know for sure. It's possible.
No, we don't know. It's just that's the way it looked. Because, like I said, they didn't even bother lighting the set correctly aboard the Enterprise. Everything was done with a single spotlight.
Yeah. And I want to thank Canadian Spider-Man for this comment. Hey, chat, if you've enjoyed this show so far, then please hit the like button and show us support for this channel.
Absolutely. Thank you, Spidey.
That does help feed the Algo Beast. Stone Racket says, I give this episode an A. And yeah, right. And Jack Stafford says, I give it a B. It's one of the more memorable ones I remember as a kid because it was so different from other plots. It's true. It was very different. Sternopoopa says, I think Isis was making sure Roberta knew she had competition. A very catty thing to do. Are you envious? Are you jealous, Isis?
Well,
that's
I thought it was this was their way of telling us that Isis was one of these advanced aliens. And if she is advanced, then you think she would be beyond jealousy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, is that she's like the alien babysitter of Gary Seven to make sure he's doing everything all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's share. I'm going to share the chat now. Where's the chat? gotta find, because we gotta see how the chat voted. Here we go. How would you rate Assignment Earth? With 33 votes, we've got 45% giving it an A, 39% a B, 9% a C, and only 6% a very low score of D plus 2F. So I didn't rate it that low, but I understand if you did. I'll leave it up for a little while, but I need to remember to. Wait a minute. No. Let's see. Jack Stafford gives it a B. And there we are. You should be on this panel instead of that Mr. Contrary. To Snortopoopas. Hey, I like Mr. Contrary. And Snortopoopas says, I'm just an old polar bear and mercifully don't have a camera or a microphone. Mr. Contrary is just fine. I think this was making sure Roberta knew she had competition. Yeah. Great. Well, anyway, the Cushman books had a few more things. Dorothy Fontana says it wasn't the most successful Star Trek episode simply because it was geared to be a possible spin-off. You always have to sacrifice something when you do that. But it worked out all right. I didn't have anything to do with it except for greatly admiring Robert Lansing, as I had. Terry Garr was new to me, but I thought she was charming. But Lansing I had liked from 87th Precinct. I had always admired his work, so I went down to the set a couple of times to watch him work. Gary Seven was an interesting character. Robert Lansing says, it was a damn good script and a lot of fun. And Art Wallace says, it was a very good pilot, and it's a shame because I think if they had done the series with just Gary Seven, it would have been a very successful show. Terry Garr said, I played Roberta Lincoln, a dippy secretary in a pink and orange costume with a very short skirt. Had the spin-off succeeded, I would have continued on as an Earthling agent, working to preserve humanity in a very short skirt. Terry Garr calls her character Dippy, but she forgets the part where the computer said she has a high IQ. On a different day, Garr says, thank God it didn't sell. Otherwise, all I would get would be Star Trek questions for the rest of my natural life and probably my unnatural life. Yeah. She probably still got plenty of Star Trek questions. Bruce Mars says, it's been 45 years ago and I still get 5 to 10 fan letters every single month from people who were born only 20 to 30 years ago. Just the other day, I got an envelope in the mail with a couple photos of Finnegan, and a fellow asked me to sign them. And he's 17. He says he and his friends watched the show on DVD, and he says, we say the long lines along with you, but everything is connected. When something is meaningful, it just stays alive. Yeah, there you go. That's Star Trek. And Scotty said he'd be back in 7 minutes. I really do hope he will, because we're at the part of the live stream where I want to talk about our end of season 2 thoughts, how we feel about this season. I had a lot of fun talking to you guys about season 2, that it's difficult for me to decide whether season 2 is better than season 1 because it had so many amazing episodes in both seasons that continue to carry on the greatness of Star Trek and its look at a more hopeful future that we could create. Even if we're not going to be creating the warp drive and the transporters, we can still decide to be better and more respectful to each other. One of the best things about season 2 is that it dove deeper into my favorite character, Spock, with the Mug Time and Journey to Babel and several other key moments. And of course, this season is the one with Mirror Mirror, so of course it's awesome. I wanted it to last a little longer. I wanted season 2 to last longer. But it was fun because this season also had the funny episodes. It had I Mud, Trouble with Tribbles, and a piece of the action. And I love that injection of humor into Star Trek, even if it's not the whole episode like those particular episodes. Just a little bit of dry humor works splendidly with the series. And it also had one of my favorite tropes, which is the relationship with artificial intelligence, which we got with the Changeling, and even better, the Ultimate Computer. I just had a great time watching this season, but I'm actually looking forward to season 3 because I don't think I've ever given it the real attention that it deserves. So, what do you think about season 2? How do you feel about closing season 2 and going into season 3, Pop Culture Curator?
I think very similar to you. I really enjoyed season 2, and like you said, it had a lot of variety. Some of the best Star Trek episodes ever that stand out. It's all these years later in history came from season 2. It's hard to describe it because I know what's coming up with season 3, and I know a lot of people are disappointed with season 3. But season 3, give it a chance. Don't tune out. It still has some good, strong episodes. But I could see from season 1 to season 2, you could see the decline of. You could see where that's when they start losing some of their core writers and producers, and which is why we end up with season 3 going to be it's a lot different than season 1 and 2. I'd say if I had to pick my favorite season out of all 3, it's
Yeah.
probably season 2.
Yeah, season 2 was pretty great. It's hard for me to pick because my favorite episode is near the end of season 1 with Devil in the Dark, but season 2 was really, really strong. And if they would have kept it up, if they would have kept the main guys, everybody, I know that not everybody technically leaves, but the people who really make up the core of creating the show are not as much into it as they were before. And so that's going to be the biggest issue for sure.
Yeah, I think it's almost because NBC begrudgingly greenlit it for 3 years because of the fan demand.
Mhm.
So they said, okay, we'll give it another season, but we'll give it less money. We'll put it in a horrible time slot. It's like they had planned on
Oh,
intentionally
yeah.
killing it. It's almost like they were upset that it was renewed.
Yeah, I did hear about that, the time slot debacle, definitely.
Fridays.
Yeah, right, when all the kids are out partying, let's put on Star Trek.
Yes.
Jack Stafford says, "I think season 2 was peak. Hit its stride before budget cuts. Just great." And yeah, this is the part, Scotty, where I was asking you about. Pop Culture and I already talked about how we
Yeah, I would have to
feel about
say
season 2.
in order, I'd say my favorite would be season 2, and then 1, and then 3.
Mm-hmm. So what about you, Scotty?
Well, it's interesting. Like, I'm really looking forward to revisiting season 3 just because of the reputation for season 3. I've always shied away from it, except if it was like a schlocky episode like Spock's Brain or Way to Eden, or if there's like a huge highlight. Like, one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek, hands down, is For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. I love that episode. I think the Enterprise incident is really good. So even going into season 3, because it's been maligned, there are some highlights that I enjoy. Season 2, I like, but again, we get into the parallel Earths like 3 times, and it seems like a little bit of a retread a couple of times. I go, in terms of my favorite seasons of Star Trek, it goes season 1, season 2, season 3, production order. Like,
Right
that's
in
just
order.
right in order. And it not to say that season 3 is bad, even with All Our Yesterdays with Mr. Atos. I like that episode. I find there are some standouts, and I'm looking forward to checking out the ones that I haven't seen a lot, like Elan of Troyes. That's one that I'm looking forward to. Day of the Dove, which I think is something that I overlook quite frequently, even though it is sort of one of the cornerstone Klingon episodes, and with the animosity between the Federation, or at least Starfleet, and the Klingon Empire. Like, there's
and our first Klingon lady.
And our first Klingon lady. And I'm glad when you compare it to other seasons, and not that this is derogatory against stuff like The Man from U.N.C.L.E., where it sort of turned into spy-fi, as you called it, and rightly so. It doesn't turn into sort of a farce. There are still some episodes there that I'm really curious to check out. And The Children Shall Lead, while I don't think is a very good episode, I think it's atmospheric in the way that it presents it as almost as another horror episode in terms of Children of the Corn kind of thing. And so I am looking forward to 3. It's not the dread that some people may have. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but as it is with The Rule, it's still the original series. It's still not. As far as I'm concerned, I like it. There's a reason I have the full series on Blu-ray as opposed to just being like, I'm only going to pick up season 1 and 2 because 3 sucks. It's like even the bad stuff is still pretty good. It's kind of like pizza.
Exactly. I'm excited to explore season 3, especially since I've watched it the least out of all of Star Trek. I'll rewatch 1 and 2 all the time, but season 3 I neglect quite a bit. And so now it's going to get the attention it should have had all the time. And about that, the book says something about executives. The 365 book says, in historical accounts, some accurate, some apocryphal, related to the demise of Star Trek, NBC executives typically are cast in the unthinking villains as the unthinking villains, cutting down this classic series in its prime. But no company is entirely populated by black hats. The truth is that there were many NBC execs who supported Star Trek over the years. Both David Tabbitt, NBC's vice president for talent, and Mort Werner, chief programming executive at the network during the 1960s, are considered white hats by most who knew them. David Tebbutt was well liked by most of the talent he oversaw. Comedian George Burns referred to him as the vice president in charge of caring. It was Tebbutt's job to spot and recruit stars for the network and to keep them happy so they would stay. Among the entertainers he brought to NBC were Michael Landon, James Garner, Dean Martin, and a young, little-known comedian named Johnny Carson. During his tenure at NBC, Mort Werner oversaw the premieres. Mort Warner oversaw the premieres of Bonanza, Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, and the 3 seasons that featured minority actors. The 3 series that featured minority actors in prominent roles for the first time: Star Trek, I Spy, and Julia. Although he had been at the studio when Star Trek was canceled, Werner was a strong advocate of relaunching the Starship Enterprise in a 90-minute TV movie as early as 1970. And so there's some telegrams also in this book. One sent, sent to Robert H. Justman. You and your show have done a credit to us all, so welcome. All best wishes for the new season. Warmest regards from David Tebbutt, Vice President, Talent, NBC TV Network. So as we get into season 3, we've got to remember not everybody who were executives were cruel to the show. Also to Robert Justman, welcome to another new season and our thanks for your hard work and cooperation. All best wishes by Mort Werner, Vice President Programs, NBC Television Network. And so Branko Walker's having trouble with his chats. He can only see himself and StreamYard. Weird. Damn cloaking devices on the fritz, says Snortopoopus. And hello to Sean Carter. Great to see you.
Hail, Sean, and so sorry about your dog, Sean.
Oh, yeah.
I totally understand.
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah, my
I'm
best
so
wishes
sorry.
go with you.
Yes, I am sorry to hear about that. About the loss of your little dog. She's really cute.
I feel that.
And if some of the episodes in season 3 get you down, just remember the alternative factor and grin.
Poopus gets it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Stone Racket says, for me, the best is definitely season 1. Season 3 is the worst, and all of the episodes I refuse to watch are in the 3rd season. And hello to Sandra Feliciano.
Hey, Sandra.
Hello there.
She's listening at work. And so that's pretty much it. But I do have a whole bunch of stuff in this book. I could try to skim it because there's a whole lot of stuff here.
Nice.
There's a magazine by Parade that had Leonard Nimoy on the cover. So this is the 1968 was the year where a whole lot of Star Trek stuff started to become popular. There was a TV radio Mirror, which gave us The Other Girl in Leonard Nimoy's Life. What? I want to listen to that. What's that about? It was Peggy Vikers who started the first Leonard Nimoy fan club and reported from the Star Trek set. We first read about her in October 1967. Then there's a 1968 issue of the Chicago Tribune where Shatner is giving cooking tips. And it's a cute little picture of him.
Out of his trailer?
Probably.
How to cook beans from a can on an engine block.
I mean, it does kind of look like they're beans. Hold on.
That was just a guess.
Here, let me drag this over. I still had her up there.
Oh, wow.
So there that is. And so I'll bring that over every once in a while because I don't want to show the whole book. But anytime there's a good picture, I'll drag it over there. Let's see, what else was there? It was all over the media. 16 Magazine, TV Weekly, Chicago Tribune, TV Picture Life, and which focused on Nimoy's family for February issue. Now that success has finally come. Leonard Nimoy faces every star's heartbreak. Is my wife's love enough for me? Oh, there was problems.
You know, that's one of the weird things when going through any of the actors that we see in Star Trek, and I noticed it today with Robert Lansing, is that they'll show the personal life like spouses, and it's Robert Lansing had quite a few wives, and just to see the people who had married, divorced, remarried, I don't usually go in for the tabloid behind the scenes stuff. I'm far more interested in the career, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm just skimming through because obviously I'm not going to read this whole book because it has a whole lot of pages of lots of cool things that happened in the interim between season 2 and 3. And yeah, exactly. I don't need to know. I guess I'll look into this closer later, but I thought it might be fun to look at some of these things. The United Press International circulated an article by Vernon Scott to numerous newspapers under the title, "Is There a Doctor in the House?" DeForest Kelley talked about how he had remained married to his wife Carolyn since 1945, how they lived in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the quiet San Fernando Valley community of Sherman Oaks, and it was all they needed. Small birds need small nests, Kelley said. And yeah, and that stayed the case all through all the movies he was in.
And those are the sort of behind the scenes stories that I do appreciate when you find out that they met and they married and they were together for the duration, you know, making it so that till death do you part is still a thing. You get married because you love somebody, and for richer or poorer, through sickness and health, you know, maybe I'm a romantic.
And the thing with that is that's a very rare thing in Hollywood, so it's good to see.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of magazines, the Teen Magazine, TV Star Parade. If you look at this book, it goes into more detail of the names of all these articles, which I want to read them all. I'm glad that this book exists so I can actually go and check these out.
Well, and what I was just reading recently about Bullet, or no, The Getaway with Steve McQueen, and as was mentioned with Robert Lansing replacing Steve McQueen, because I do kind of find Robert Lansing to be the television version of Steve McQueen, because they do kind of look similar. But how Steve McQueen didn't want Ali McGraw to be in The Getaway, and it was Robert Evans, her husband at the time, who really pushed for her to be in The Getaway, ultimately leading to one of those sort of classic Hollywood romances until Steve McQueen's death. That was all right, yeah. There are some tales, but
That's good.
Yeah.
Franco Walker says, yeah, it's a definite D episode too. Stone Racket was saying, I won't be here and the children shall lead. Hate it.
I don't think I'm going to be available for The Children Shall Lead, but I do want to revisit it. I'll have a brief sound clip review for you for it.
Hooray. Okay.
But
yeah, if you can't be there, then that'll be fine. That'll work for me. I understand.
I do want to check it out because, again, that's as I've referred to a lot of these episodes as being just sort of a rainy Saturday afternoon on the CBC, and that one was just weird, creepy to me, and not very exciting, but just made me feel uneasy. And so I'm wondering, because I haven't seen it in probably over 10, 15 years.
Poopa says the budget was cut. Roddenberry more or less walked away from the show. Jane Kuhn was gone, and Freiberger
Close enough.
was in charge. I always call him Freiberger, like
overfried burger.
Yeah, Freiberger. I don't know what his name is.
I'll take a free burger. I will gladly pay today, or gladly take a burger today for one.
I have no sympathy for fried burger.
I don't feel bad. He's the only person I don't feel bad for mispronouncing his last name. But if I'm doing it wrong, if I learn the right way, I'll try better. Jim says, I feel your loss, Carter. I lost my best puppy, Pete, this year. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim, too. Yeah, no, pets are family, and I'm really sorry, Sean. It's really, really terrible. I'm glad you're here, though. Where do you think you're going? Oh, Matt G says Stone Racket. I don't know where he thinks he's going. But there's a lot going on. March 22nd, 1968, Star Trek had 2 scripts nominated for the Writers Guild Awards for Best Dramatic Episode, The Return of the Archons, and The City on the Edge of Forever. And Ellison, the maverick writer at odds with Star Trek, sent in his first draft as a means of protest in all the rewriting by the staff. Ellison got the reward and decades of bragging rights. So good for him. But he also groped somebody at those awards too, so whatever. It was a good episode. I really love that episode with that story, but that's not in the book, but it's true. Something that can't be forgotten. Oh, Nimoy was nominated for Outstanding Performance as an Actor in Supporting Role. For what? What award was this? I don't know. He deserves all the awards, though.
Well, don't tell Shatner that.
I will. I love Shatner, but... Oh, cool. Look at this lunchbox.
Remember lunchboxes, kids?
Oh, yeah.
Ray Plastic put out Star Trek tracer gun and also tracer gun rifle with Kirk and Spock on the packaging. Remco had an Astro walkie-talkie. It was their usual Astro walkie-talkie with the name Star Trek on the package, along with images of Kirk and Spock. So it was just a regular. They just used stickers. Just yeah, it's Star Trek.
Yeah, it was the Channel 14 walkie-talkies. I remember.
So they didn't even try to make it look like a communicator.
No, and they have very limited range. You had to be practically standing next to each other.
It sounds like he had one.
Yes.
And so that lunchbox was the Aladdin Star Trek Dome top lunchbox and thermos.
Did we talk about the helmet, the Spock helmet?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. Yes, the helmet with the little light on the top.
Yep.
I think everybody knows about that. Oh, so the most anticipated tie-in was music to the ears of many fans, Leonard Nimoy's follow-up to the highly successful Mr. Spock's Music from Outer Space. With this new LP, however, there would be half as much Spock and twice as much Nimoy. I don't make personal appearances as Spock, Nimoy told Ruth Berman in 1968 for the Inside Star Trek. I go as myself, and you remember my first record from Dot had emphasis on Spock, but the second one is two sides of Leonard Nimoy. What was on this one?
I wonder if that's the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, it says featured on the Spock side, highly illogical. And the difference between us, once I smiled, and Spock thought. Let's see what's on the. I'm
Yeah,
trying to scan.
Highly logical. They used to play that on Dr. Demento.
Filling out the Spock side. Follow your star. Anyway, you can look at that. Side 2 opened with the infamous Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. You had it right on.
And I'm not even a Lord of the Rings fan.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say adieu to Retro Nerd Girl.
Oh yeah, Retro Nerds Girl says heading off to work. I loved listening to your review. Oh,
Take
thank
care.
you so much. It's such an honor to have you in my chat, and I hope you have a good day at work. I hope to see you again soon. And Jack Stafford says, I have the Spock helmet. My mom bought it at a garage sale. Who knew it was such a rare thing?
It would be a cool thing to just have. I know that it doesn't make any sense, but it would be cool to have.
Yeah, I remember that episode where Spock wore a weird helmet with the light on top. I had a Munsters light lunchbox.
Ooh.
Says Stone Racket. Wow. No. And the children shall lead quote from Snorri Poopus Q Bird. You have to wait for that.
Oh no, my stars.
You're not going to be here for it, Scotty, so you have to read this chat.
Snortopoopus Q Bird, the chat says, hail, hail, fire and snow. This episode is going to blow.
Oh, I'm so glad I had you do that. That was great.
But and I know that they do make reference to the Star Trek helmet in an episode of Lower Decks, which is sort of why I it's not Star Trek. It's more like a cartoon parody in the same universe, which is, I guess, it's fine, whatever. But it's
wait, what? What are you talking about?
In Lower Decks. In Lower Decks.
Oh, okay. That's not Star Trek. It's okay.
No, it's not Star Trek. It's a parody. I get it, and it. But I do appreciate the references. Like if you're just looking for the member berries.
Oh yeah, it's full of them for sure.
It may not be your cup of tea in terms of the humor, but they do, they know their stuff even if they're not playing well with the toys. It's like inviting that neighbor over who's going to strap a bottle rocket to your Snake Eyes action figure, and it's like that's not how you play with these things. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. I had that kid come over sometimes, and he broke my Operation. He broke my Simon Says. It's just.
See, there you go. Yeah.
Comic Book King Western Publishing delivered its second gold key comic Star Trek issue, The Devil's Isle of Space. Oh. I have the first 6 copies of this comic in collection, but I need to get more. I really like them. Specifically, my son enjoys the Gold Key comics more than Star Trek itself, which I'm trying to get him to enjoy the series. But I started reading him these comics, and he's just like, "Mom, these are better."
Well, I
Oh.
forget who puts out the I don't know who puts out the collections. It might even be Eagle Moss. But there are hardcover collections of classic Star Trek comics, like the Gold Key, classic 80s from both Marvel and DC. And they are available at like dollar stores in the GTA, in General Toronto area, Greater
Oh,
Toronto
nice.
area.
Yeah, for
So-
me, Ollie's has stuff like that sometimes, but they keep shrinking the availability of that kind of stuff. And then they also add in, they kind of bundle in the good comics with the filth, and then I'm like, I'm not going to get a pack of this if it includes that.
Well, and luckily, like that's where I got my copy, the illustrated, like the comic, the sequential art, the graphic novel of the original script by Harlan Ellison for City on the Edge of Forever. And so that's kind of cool. There's also, they have the Countdown
Oh, wow.
prequel comic for Star Trek 2009, which is, I understand people's feelings on that, but it's like the last adventure before they effed everything up. So they're kind of cool, kind of neat just to check out, and because they are beta canon, like they're not real, so you can take them or leave them as you wish.
Oh, and also happening around when Assignment Earth premiered is the March on NBC Burbank in January 1960. Oh, wow. Okay, actually, that was way earlier than Assignment Earth. In January. Help save Star Trek. Wow, that campaign started early. So this is what I wanted to get to, was a bit of the letter writing campaign. There was something in the 365 book about it. It said, let's get it big. It says, in 1951, Betty Jo Ann Conway attended a gathering of science fiction fans and met her destiny. Bijo, as her friend called her, quickly became a fixture of the fan community, a BNF, big name fan, well known for her skills at organizing art shows and costume displays for conventions. But it wasn't until 1967 that Bijo and her husband, fellow fan John Trimble, became BNFs to a much larger community. Star Trek captivated the Trimbles from the beginning. After Bijo realized that the Desilu production office was just a few miles from her home, she wrote a letter asking to meet producer Gene Roddenberry, complimented that his show had at least one loyal viewer, agreed to meet with her. Impressed with her intelligence and enthusiasm, Roddenberry wisely said yes when Bijo volunteered to help out by opening the stacks of fan mail that were beginning to pile up at the Star Trek offices. By the middle of Star Trek's second season, the producers were convinced that NBC intended to cancel the series. This was unacceptable to the Trimbles, who hoped to see the show live on in reruns. This was before the days of home video. They knew that if Star Trek didn't produce at least 70 episodes, it wouldn't be sold into rerun syndication and would disappear forever. Bijo had an idea. She would start a letter writing campaign to NBC, Save Star Trek campaign, as she had done at dozens of science fiction conventions. She orchestrated the activity in an efficient and professional manner. Bijo had found many fan letters to be poorly written, demanding, and even rude. So she created a how-to memo, which included the names and office addresses of NBC executives, and distributed it to her friends throughout the fan community. Among the instructions were several strategic hints, such as use a legal-sized envelope. Don't mention Star Trek on the front of the envelope, and don't include a return address on the outside of the envelope, thus ensuring that the studio would be required to open it. Fans were also asked not to send form letters so the recipients at NBC would understand that each letter came from an individual viewer. And the memo stressed, be polite. In the following weeks, the Trimbles received requests for copies of the how-to memo from fans across the country, from the membership of the high IQ organization Mensa, and even from employees of Polaroid, a Star Trek sponsor, who then sent letters not only to NBC, but to everyone at their own company. As momentum grew, the Kansas City Star interviewed the Trimbles. The resulting story generated hundreds of additional requests for the memo. The exact number of letters that NBC received is not recorded. Estimates range from tens of thousands to 1 million. But whatever the count, NBC was so impressed by the response that on March 31st, the network included a special announcement after one of the episodes. The upshot, Star Trek would return for a third season. And there you go.
Well, and it's an incredible legacy, not just for Bicho, but also for Star Trek. Like it is, and that's why when I refer to Jimmy Doohan as being an incredible ambassador from the show itself, like he is the one who the oral history of the conventions and the letter writing campaign. And I know that many people on the show championed the letter writing campaign, and there's been scuttlebutt as to what happened and whether or not it was partially sort of orchestrated by Gene.
Well, they were definitely friends, obviously.
Yeah.
And Bijo was there for the show, and she was the ultimate fan.
Yes. And I do appreciate it. Like it is part of the legacy. And with modern storytelling and fans having their input be respected to sort of course correct and change things for entertainment the way that we enjoy it, and hopefully it's something that can carry on with saving the Orville, like renew the Orville.
Exactly, renew the Orville. Yes, and there was a similar campaign with that in terms of they sent a bunch of pickle jars, and so that was kind of crazy. And so that worked for season 3, but what's going to happen with season 4, I don't know yet. Something needs to happen there. And also, we've got to get back to exploring when we do get a season 4. And instead of getting too introspective, I think season 3 did a bit. But Stone Racket says, for me, the best is definitely season 1. Season 3 is the worst of all the episodes. Oh, yeah, I read that one. I'm just seeing where I am here. Jack Stafford says, the behind the scenes and extra content from the books is so good. Most is new to me. Thanks. You're welcome. Yeah, I thought today, since I have a little extra time, that I would be able to talk about it, and it's been pretty good so far. And I'm reading some of this for the first time because I didn't get a chance to review some of the stuff in the Cushman book. Snortopoopus Cuber says, so my letter that started with Dear Network Pond Scum, who needed to burn the fires of perdition, wasn't effective?
Yeah, no, I had the same sort of situation. My letter started with "Oi, prick."
Jack Stafford says, that is great. Hacks for letter writing campaigns, probably still valid. So cool. Yeah, it does seem like very important information there. Since snail mail still does exist. That's so cool, says Franco Walker. Thank you for that, Jill. You're welcome. And the problem is this book still keeps going on. Let's see. And I think the 365 book encapsulated the meaning of the letter writing campaign pretty well. One letter says, Dear Star Trek, the program has changed my life. It was after the episode The City on the Edge of Forever by Harlan Ellison that the characters became real to me. I began to live in a fantasy that occupied almost every waking moment. I went through a great emotional upheaval. My thinking has been altered. I feel like a new and better person. Oh. So that's one of the letters. If you read this book, there are more letters.
That's fascinating. I would love to read some of the how Star Trek touched the people at the time who actually went out of their way to read or to write, to sort of send their support to say, please don't take it away.
Mm-hmm.
And again, tact, like you draw more flies with honey than with vinegar. And it is a situation where you show your appreciation for something instead of the vitriol towards the people who you perceive as busting it up in that particular instance.
Exactly. I think I actually did start a letter for the Orville back in season 2 when I was still really, really, really in love with it. And I wish I would have kept that because that would have been good, because now I kind of don't like season 3 as much. So I don't know how good my letter would be now. But I still want more Orville.
Mm-hmm.
I'll think about it. DeForest Kelley had no idea the popularity Star Trek had generated. In the spring break of '68, Kelley and his wife traveled to New York, where they took in an afternoon performance of a Broadway stage production, The Cabaret. They went to the restroom. As Kelley waited for his wife, he spotted a couple of women looking his way. He said, "They came over and handed me their programs to sign. So I signed them, and a couple more came over and handed me their programs to sign, and I started to sign them. After about 10 minutes, there was a whole mob. I looked up, looking for Carolyn, and I couldn't see her. I was in the middle of a seething mob. And finally, I saw Carolyn, just her head, coming up the steps from the ladies' room. I was literally surrounded, and I couldn't get away. And Carolyn waved at me, and I waved to her, and she pointed like this. I'm going to the seats." They finally had to call the ushers and a security man. The women in the theater were getting up out of their seats, mind you, and coming into the aisle to get to me. It was a complete shock to me. And they were all standing in the balconies shouting, "Star Trek" and "McCoy." It was wild. Finally, they got me down to my seat, and when I sat down, we were in the middle row of nuns, sisters on either sides of us. So people are in the aisles, and they're passing programs over, and the nuns are handing me these programs, and I'm signing them. It was such a mess. They were holding the curtain of the show. There was so much noise. This nun that was sitting next to me, she said, "This must be a terrible annoyance for you wherever you go." It was equally as bad getting out of there. I wanted to go backstage and say hello to Joel Grey, but I couldn't. The ushers came and got me to the other side of the theater, put me in a cab like a mechanical doll. That was the first time I ever was mobbed. It was completely shocking.
And that's incredible, just for that show, for it being so far off the beaten path. Like I really like it, and some of the stories, like with Jimmy Doohan talking about the fan who said, if it weren't for Star Trek, I wouldn't be around anymore, and him making the deal to say, okay, well, there's going to be a convention, and I want to meet you there, so you better be there. And then subsequently developing that relationship and enticing and reassuring a fan that there is a world worth living for, as Edith Keeler would say.
That is a touching story, yes.
And then also on the flip side of that, DeForest Kelley talking about the letter that he got from the fan who says, "You've turned me on so many times, I thought I'd return the favor with a marijuana cigarette," as he says.
Wow, that's pretty funny. I missed that story. Yeah, and then 6,000 letters a week NBC admitted to getting. There's a lot of love for Star Trek. Yeah, Save the Orville, so good. Much more deserving than the Prodigy campaign. Oh, there's a Prodigy campaign.
Oh, there is. There is, and it's so strange to hear like seems to be what's going on with Hollywood right now, is that it's all done by executives and committee, and there's no continuation of a story except from the production. Everything to do with it is we'll sell it all. Like, get all of your Star Trek on Paramount Plus, they say, and then they ditch something that they brought out, which has developed quite a fan response, and some people are saying that it's probably one of the most true aspects of Star Trek. Started off a little kiddie, but is actually developing, and if you can develop a story, it may actually go somewhere good. But short-sighted production based on tax breaks, and I don't even know what you're doing.
The thing is about that show is I watched a little bit of all of the not Star Trek, and so it's not Star Trek, but out of all of the not Star Trek, it's the one that's not malicious in its writing. I can't, in every other one, I can find dialogue and stories that seem to say, we don't like Star Trek, and that's not what we're going to give you. Even if we understand it, that's not what you're getting. And this is the only one that doesn't do that for me on any level. It just kind of gets things wrong, but not on purpose.
Well, and honestly, like, my aversion to it was when it started off and it was in the Delta Quadrant, and it seemed like it was almost Star Wars, Clone Wars-y. It was just aliens on another planet that find a Federation ship. And I was like, this is not what I wanted. And then, or what I would want in a Star Trek show. And as it's gone on, apparently it does incorporate more and more and instill the ideals of the Federation and that philosophy that Gene initially sort of pioneered. And as they learn, they develop the ideals that we as fans have. And so it starts off from almost like a fan's perspective, from what I've heard. I haven't seen all of it. I've only seen parts of it. I know that there are some things that are that some may consider to be contrary. Like, I know that there's they do a Kobayashi Maru thing when they get holographic representations of all of the Star Trek crews. But it's something that I want to. It is something that I want to check out and at least give a chance until I can't watch it anymore.
Okay, fair enough. Stone Racket says, I just ordered the Star Trek 365 book. I know I should have already bought this one. I have no excuses. Please forgive me. There are so many books I don't have. I would love to have more Star Trek books. And I'm glad you're going to get this one because it's full of amazing, beautiful pictures. The images are glossy, and it's kind of an oddly shaped book, but it's wonderful. Jack Stafford says Scotty has a point. People putting pen to paper were far more careful than those who fire off a 3-second tweet in a fit of attitude.
Yeah. You touched my childhood in an inappropriate place. That's not going to get anything renewed.
No. Jack Stafford says, I remember a video of DeForest saying, marijuana cigarette. I wondered where that came from.
I think it was an interview during the 25th anniversary special specifically talking about the original series exclusively. And then there's like a 5-10 minute thing at the end that says, and Gene Roddenberry's vision goes into the 24th century. But it is mostly talking about the impact of the original series, where he does talk about that. And that's where you can find that James Doohan story about the
about
the support,
how he saved someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek saves people's lives, and more than just that story. It's a real thing. Franco Walker says, I was enjoying Prodigy till they took it off. Okay, well, there you go, Franco Walker. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. I know they got some stuff wrong, but they were trying, I guess. Stone Rocket says, thank you so much for these Star Trek live streams. See you next week. Yeah, see you next week, Stone Rocket.
What's the episode for next week?
Oh, next week. We're starting off season 3. We're still going in production order. We're starting with Spectre of the Gun.
Nice. See, there's another one I adore. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt Sean Carter.
No, that's okay. Sean Carter sent in a super chat for $2. Hi, Jill. Sorry, I couldn't make it. Meetings suck. Yeah, and you're having a rough day. I'm really sorry. I hope everything. I hope things get better for you. I know that's. I know you had a great loss today too. It would have been really great to hear from you to talk about Star Trek with you. But yeah, meetings do suck. So here's 2 meetings.
Excuse me. Do you mind stopping that noise?
Oh, they even got letters from one employee of NASA wrote to us from Texas. Oh. As a SAC officer out of the main SAC base, wherever it is, wrote and asked for 50 copies. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, 50 copies of the memo thing. So everybody can know how to write a letter to Star Trek. To get Star Trek news. There were a great many people around Jane who had no idea what we were doing. When we came to visit, Jane was always very careful to keep it fan visiting set. We kept it that way too. NBC kept accusing Gene and looking around Paramount to find out who was doing this, but no one really knew. Only Major Barrett and 1 or 2 other people who close to Gene knew. Yeah, for the letter writing. Oh, and the actual memo is in this book. It's my Christian book. I won't read out all of it because it's quite a few paragraphs. I think the 365 book summarized it pretty well. Yeah, what a great thing that happened. In terms of actually getting into syndication, this whole letter thing, this is why Star Trek endured, because it was allowed to be played as reruns. Kendall Cho David Alexander, author of Star Trek Creator, whatever that is. I was handing out bumper stickers on the street and was interviewed by some newspapers while I was there, but I thought I should be able to put these bumper stickers on cars that count. NBC executives. Oh, that's kind of like, is that like vandalism? I don't know. Of course, they weren't going to let me into the NBC parking lot, so I watched them to see what was going on. I saw that the limousine drivers would frequently stop, get out, and talk to the garden gate before they went in, and picked up their passengers. I waited until one of them did that when the limo was empty. I climbed into the back with my bumper stickers and hid until he drove in. When the driver got out, I jumped out and began plastering bumper stickers everywhere I could. I spent a good amount of time in the executive parking area, probably decorated between 200 and 300, almost all of them Lincolns and Cadillacs. Later, I managed to find a couple of Star Trek fans who got me into the executive offices, where I left Mr. Spock for President bumper stickers on the desks. Oh, I laid them on the desk. I didn't stick them on any desk. I also pinned them to the office bulletin board everywhere I could. Wow, that is some wild stuff.
That is dedication.
Yeah. Yeah, people and we saw the Save the Star Trek rally 1968 in January. So while season 2 was going on, fans were fighting to get Star Trek back. We got it. Way to go. There's some cool stories in here that I'm skipping. You gotta read this book. This book is great. Doug Drexler, who was an avid Star Trek fan living in his family's home on Long Island, New York, recalled the first I'd heard of it was a letter from Bijo, and I remember it as being a cold hand closing over my heart because back then when he canceled the show, it was just like killing everybody on the show. You couldn't buy a videotape, and if you were lucky, maybe it would be syndicated later on. I got this thing from Bijo and I snapped right away into being very militant. She had guidelines of who to write and how to address people and things like that. I literally went on a campaign at school and was stopping everybody. I made flyers that I would pass out. I organized the center each committee to save Star Trek, and I organized a core group of people who were writing letters every single day. I think it was Julian Goodman, the president of NBC at the time. We were writing to him. And of course, I was writing to all the local newspapers, to the Long Island Press, Newsday, Daily News, and the press responded with an article and mentioned us in it. But Newsday really came through. I was in class, and I got called to the principal's office, and I didn't know why. I got there, and there was Bobby Erickson, who apparently was like a cousin of Isaac Asimov. And he called the school and asked for me. And I was interviewed, and I appeared in the newspaper in a day or two. Wow. That's really cool. That Doug Drexler jumped out at me because, of course, he would later go on to actually working for Star Trek and as an art director. That's awesome. He was part of the campaign.
Well, and it is, you know.
Only 14. Yeah, so if you want to read more about that, the book, read it. Go ahead.
Well, just in terms of the inspiration, like I know that people do discuss like engineers and scientists and astronauts and pilots and whatnot, but also just for production designers and artistic people who wanted to be a part of Hollywood, just seeing the magic that can be made and how it touches people.
Yeah, and this was an incredible campaign, and this book is very expansive on all of the cool people who really helped with this. And that's his book. So check it out if you want to read more. I think I've read enough. And so then we'll move into season 3 next week.
I
actually even got the season 3. These are the voyages. It doesn't have the pictures in it. But I don't think I have time to read all of this stuff. But like you were saying before, it didn't get a good time slot.
Well, I am looking forward to it, and I'm glad that we're going in production order, just so we don't necessarily have to jump in to Spock's brain, which some people don't like. I'm okay with it, but I know that
I'm okay with it too.
Yeah, but you do like. I also understand why people don't like it.
Me too.
Or
I think it's one of the few Star Trek episodes, original series episodes, in which I think TNG took the concept of and did it better. And it was one of the few Wesley episodes that I actually like. What is it called?
It's where the brain?
Where they steal children.
Oh,
but it's a similar kind of society who uses the computer to do everything, and they've forgotten how to live.
I always want to say Up the Long Ladder, but that's the
that's
the Irish one.
Episode. That's the other racist Star Trek episode. Does it have the word cradle in it?
Let's see.
I want to figure out what the name of this episode
When the Bow Breaks.
When the Bow Breaks. Thank you. That's it. That's all. When the Bow Breaks is an improvement on Spock's brain, I think, in terms of some of the general ideas.
But I am looking forward to it, and it'll be interesting to explore these things through production order as opposed to broadcast.
The network decided to move Star Trek to Friday nights at 10 p.m. The death slot. We'll put you here for now while we wait for you to die.
Known throughout the galaxy as the aliens' graveyard.
Yeah, I usually don't have extra time to look at these books, so I'm just skimming through a bit, if you don't mind. If you gotta run, let me know.
I do. I actually do. 4:00 for me is usually my cutoff, so I will have to take my leave. I do want to thank everybody in the chat for hanging out and talking Star Trek with us. Thank you, Pop Culture Curator. It's amazing to be able to hang out with you and talk about this stuff as well.
Likewise, my pleasure, Scotty. Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah. And then, as always, Jill, thank you for being a friend. Traveled down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant.
Well, you're incredible, Scotty R37. So thank you for talking to me about Star Trek and all of the great additions and contributions you give to our discussions. And I
Thank
had
you.
a lot of fun.
Well,
And I
I will
hope
see
you
you
have a
next
really
week.
good day. Yeah, we're gonna have our Western episode. So
Cool.
anything you want to share?
No, not really. I'm on the X Twitter, and I hang out with people who like hanging out and talking. And sometimes I'm sober. So I will see you guys in
Yeah,
the
like
future.
today.
Yeah, I
See you
know, right?
later.
I'll
Yeah,
see you
so
soon.
incredibly sober. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Cheers.
And if you gotta go, let me know. Pop culture curator. I'm just gonna skim through a little bit of the preface here before we get to the episode. Obviously, I'm not gonna start talking about the episode,
Okay.
but I'm not gonna read this whole book, so it takes a minute for me to find something that's good to extrapolate from it.
Now, which book are you talking about? Is it the Star Trek 365?
This one is Mark Cushman. These Are the Voyages, season 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Why there's so much detail.
Hmm. Exactly. This person is talking about the type of TV he had. A lot of people love to talk about the type of TV they had in the 60s. And more often than not, while watching Star Trek in that terrible 10 to 11 time slot, I'd hear the dreaded sound of the family station wagon pulling into the driveway, and then Timothy, our dog, would run to the front door barking. It was very good news for him that the rest of the family was returning home. I did not share Timothy's joy. I'd quickly turn off the TV set, dash down the hall to my bedroom, switching off the light from the wall switch, and leaping across the room into my bed. My clothes would come off under the covers, and by the time my parents and sisters entered the house, I was undressed, completely still and silent, but tormented, thinking about the Star Trek episode I had been watching and wondering how it might end. Without realizing it, I was training myself to be a writer, using my imagination to put story, picture, and sound together to create in my mind the ending of this week's Star Trek. Oh wow, I wonder if he came up with better endings than some of the season 3 episodes.
That's possible.
This was Bob Olson. That was his story. Well, what did he write? I don't know Bob Olson.
I haven't heard of the name.
I haven't either.
Maybe
But
just another fan.
yeah, maybe he's just a fan. Hmm. No, I have no clue. But it was a good story. Oh, what the heck? That's unfortunate. He didn't get to watch the episodes. And yeah, that I agree with that. I'd been spoiled by the first 2 seasons. The first 2 seasons do spoil you. It's all wonderful, mostly. Despite being aware of a decrease in quality over during the 3rd season, even when I was first watching those episodes at 13, says Bob, I nonetheless enjoyed many of them. And now watching them again through older and hopefully wiser eyes, I find that there are worthwhile qualities, even in the episodes I used to dismiss as not being good enough for Star Trek. Bob Justman, the series co producer, said, I loved them all, even the much maligned Spock's Brain. With only 79 episodes, I now realize that I too love them all, even the equally much maligned and the children shall lead. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's an episode only a father can love of a series. And the often ridiculed The Way to Eden. With this book, the 3rd and the These Are the Voyage trilogy have the final chapter in the making of the first Star Trek series. So there you go. And so we'll talk about that.
I just found an author on Amazon, Robert Olson.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the same person.
Oh, okay.
Introduction to Existentialism, Art Direction for Film and Video. That sounds like it may be the same person. The Art of
That
Creative
might be it.
Thinking.
That sounds right.
Possibly, yeah.
Mm. Wow.
A lot of
Okay,
influences.
so yeah, Roddenberry back in charge. What? Okay. A television series saved from certain death by its fans. It never happened before. And yeah, so this starts with the letter campaign, which we already covered. So it has more about it. So these books are really great for that. Oh, I guess Spock was kind of complaining about his portrayal in some episodes, where his role added up to a raised eyebrow. Fascinating, logical, illogical. The Spock pinch. I am sorry, Captain, but at the present time and with the present information, I am unable to give you anything more specific than that.
Yeah, that was around the time that he was demanding a raise.
The planet
When they
is
were,
Class M. Oh, really?
yeah, when they were negotiating, because when they found out that how popular he was for the fans, and him and his agent was trying to negotiate for more money, and that's when NBC was considering replacing him with other actors, and they had that list of other actors that they had in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when Nimoy heard that he was going to be replaced, he changed his mind.
Well, yeah, I'm glad he did, because he is Spock. He couldn't give up Spock.
Yes.
Of course, he had that book, those two books, where he says he's not Spock, and then he is Spock.
Not Spock, then Spock, yes. To the very end. He played Spock till the very end, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that they focused on Spock first, because without him, what's the point?
True.
And everybody was saying goodbye to Scotty. Jack Stafford said, "Great show. Thanks, Jill, Scotty, and PCC."
Thank you, Jack.
So Cardinal Sin in there in my rotation. Yeah, there's a lot of season 3-ness going on in this book. It's great. And they got all the contracts squared away. Uh-oh. You got to put in your password.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Oh, Nichelle Nichols was having second thoughts about her communication station.
Wasn't that when she spoke to Martin Luther King?
No, this had to be earlier because he gets assassinated right after assignment.
Gotcha.
Assignment Earth. So she's thinking about it again. But I'm glad Roddenberry pointed out to Nichols that Mannix was an unproven series. Oh, because she was getting an offer that she thought was better. Mannix was going into his second year, and he needed a secretary.
Yes.
So she wasn't under contract, so she was free to leave Star Trek. But Geller had some honor with him because he would only cast Nichols with Roddenberry's blessing, and the latter was hesitant. After one uneventful season, it was still struggling to find its identity. So, Nichols was receiving sacks full of mail every week. So Nichelle Nichols could have left if she wanted to. Would the same be true over for Mannix? Could the role of secretary and single mom possibly match that of the first black woman in outer space?
Well, Mannix was popular for a while, but never achieved, obviously, the heights of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, it starred Mike Connors, and he was from Fresno. And a lot of the episodes, because of that, took place in Fresno. Oops.
James Doohan, however, didn't need any convincing. He was good to go.
Yes. Well, he did some, as we all know, some low-budget Saturday morning fare in the interim between Star Trek and when they brought it back.
Wow. Okay. And then it talks a bit about the writing of the episodes, which this book is really expansive on how these episodes were written. Way more detailed than we need for this show. But it's good stuff. see if there's anything after the writing portion. A lot about writing. We'll actually go through these episodes one by one, so we don't need to look at each individual little
That's
thing
true.
here. But at least I know to come back to this intro, because this intro has some information. The real reason for it was that the Laugh-In had insisted that the spot that they were going to give to us, it was obvious to me that 10 p.m. Friday was death. And so, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But NBC knew it had a hot property in Star Trek, even as the network programmers were pronouncing its death sentence. Why did that happen?
Well, apparently they must have already had another show in mind for the time slot, for the earlier
Oh,
time slot. So once Star Trek was renewed, they said, "Well, just stick it in between 10 and 11."
man. Is it true that Star Trek has been moved from 8:30 on Friday to 10 o'clock? That is unfair, if so, as more of us could watch it if it were on earlier. How can we protest about this? Says Mike R. from Oakland, California. Oh, man. Yeah, the only people who are sitting at home watching TV on a Friday night is Aunt Maud in Iowa. The only cloud I had to fight the network, says Roddenberry, with was would I or would I not produce? Obviously, I had no other weapon, so I said to the network, I will not go back and put in the kind of effort, risk of life and health and everything to a show that cannot make it no matter what I do. And the threat worked when it came from George Slater regarding Laugh-In, but to the Thinking Network men, losing Roddenberry for Star Trek was not a defeat; it was a victory. So they actually didn't want Roddenberry, and so they enjoyed the idea that he wasn't going to work on Star Trek. Wow. They said to Roddenberry, they refused to budge, and I was left in a situation of having used the only thread I had. I was stuck with either backing off entirely and producing it anyway, which meant that in the future dealings with NBC, they would never believe my word again, or I could keep my word. Gene had given up on any possibility of the show becoming popular in the sense that the network might see it, said Robert Justman. He went so far as to move off the lot. To all sense and purposes, he was lost to us. And with him went the flavor and the subtlety and the excitement that he gave the project. When Gene left, we were all very depressed, Walter Koenig said. It was one of the most depressing moments of the show. This betrayal by NBC was the last straw for Gene, revealed George Takei. To have the ideal time slot snatched away and replaced with the worst possible one was a double cross that they could not take without a dramatic display of courage. He announced that he was keeping the title of executive producer, but that he was leaving Star Trek. He was going off to another office at MGM Studio to work on a feature film starring Rock Hudson. Pretty Maids all in a row. Wait, where is Scotty?
There it is.
Hey, Scotty should have stayed. I don't know why you left. Why you have to leave
Yep.
at 4. He would be available to us only sporadically, he stated. And Dorothy Fontana, our story editor, was also leaving. Their departure was a serious loss for our show. But for me, that was dismaying. Gene and Dorothy were the ones who knew of and understood my ideas and aspirations for Sulu. This was the season I had hoped would see Sulu come into prominence. Again, all the work I had done to develop the character and enhance my role was washed away.
And he never really got that in movies.
Yeah. No. No, this book is getting good now. Jim says Star Trek saved me from doing drugs back in the 60s and 70s in schools. Oh, that's great, Jim. That is a good story. Yeah, Star Trek does a lot of great things for people in their personal lives. Sort of Poopa says, "Take care, Mr. Scotty." Oh, I miss saying goodbye to Scotty from the chat. Darius said it too. And so did Jim. And Maggie asks, "What's for dinner?" I don't know yet. I haven't even thought about dinner. I think I took out some pork chops. I have to see what I took out. I don't know. I just threw something in the refrigerator last night from the freezer. And anyway, you don't care about that. Sarnapoopus says she would have gone from opening hailing frequencies to answering phones and taking dictation. Bad move. Yeah, to go to Mannix. Privately, Gene would occasionally concede that his departure wasn't solely motivated by the time slot fight, but also the cumulative effects of 4 years' worth of network battling. Gene was simply burnt out and no longer able to muster the energy necessary to mount the daily struggle against the never-ending onslaught of blue-suited network executives. Yeah, that is a problem. That is the main problem with season 3, Gene and Dorothy not being front and center.
Yeah,
In
it's very
terms of
noticeable.
it is.
By that time, Gene Coon was gone, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure that all of these people kind of did something like and it won't be until we actually dig into deep dive into each of these episodes that we know whether or not they helped from the outside, like we're not really working on this show, but we love it and here's the thing. So we'll see if any of them do any of that.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see about that because the inside stuff is what we're here to find out.
Be right back.
Okay. This season is one we know least about. I mean, I know least about. I know some of you guys out there know all this stuff, but I'm going to be discovering it for the first time, I think. Even though I watched the episodes once, I don't know much about what happened behind the scenes. And so this is going to be really cool to see. But it is really sad that we're starting out this way, where in terms of actually being in the credits, yeah, and actually working on it. John had experience as writer, director, and producer when he was looking at a script or rewriting a script. Oh, John, wait, what are they talking? John Meredith Lucas. Yes, he did a great job on season 2. I agree. And I never really appreciated him before season 2. He was great. It's too bad he wasn't showrunner. He could have done John Meredith Lucas and Robert Justman would have been great. And Herb Solo. I think Herb Solo left too, didn't he? And it had been Gene Coon's idea to hire Lucas as a writer. Hmm. Yeah, and Gene Coon picked Lucas to be his successor. Okay. Ralph Sinensky. Ralph Sinensky. He wrote This Side of Paradise, directed Gene Coon's Metamorphosis. Oh, yeah. He was disappointed when he returned to the latter part of season 2 for Obsession under and started under Gene Coon's guidance, but ended with John Meredith Lucas's typewriter. Semensky says, I cannot speak for the other directors, but I can definitely say there was a drop in quality from This Side of Paradise, Metamorphosis, and Bretta's Circuses to the other 2 episodes I directed the second season, Obsession and Return to Tomorrow. But they're talking about good episodes, so I'm not worried about those. And February 1st, 1968, admitting that the quality had dipped during season 2. Yeah, and wow, it's still talking about season 2. When does it get to season 3? Wait, oh no. Fred Freiberger. Okay, I'll go see how to pronounce this because I'm gonna have to say his name a lot. Didn't mind mispronouncing it when we weren't talking about season 3, but now that we're on season 3, how do we pronounce it? That's how I've been saying it. Yeah, Freiburger. That's how I say Freiburger. If that's wrong, howtopronounce.com agrees with me. Fred Freiburger. I know he was not a good influence for Star Trek. But I guess we'll hear more about that as we go to each episode, each that we get that we really deep dive into. Wow, they really go into his entire career. So if you want to know the entire career of Fred Freiberger, this Cushman book helps you out with that. I don't need to read all that though. He was a screenwriter. Yeah, that's basically all you need to know. He was a screenwriter. But his first foray into science fiction in 1953 was when he did The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I don't know if that was any good. I'll have to ask Pop when he gets back. More sci-fi for the kids came on the big screen with 1957's Beginning of the End, World of the Giants. Well, now they're just listing a whole bunch of TV series and movies, and I'm not sure how any of them relate to Fred. Freiberger helps launch the Robert Horton hit A Man Called Shenandoah. Shenandoah. I guess it was supposedly good. Shenandoah. Shenandoah. That's how you probably say that. Freiberger got the Wild Wild West onto the right track, I guess. I guess he did some good stuff. That's what this book is saying. Okay, so CBS claimed that the Axe producer would devote his time to producing a pilot property for the network. But Freiberger disputed this when he told Variety, I was fired for accomplishing what I had been hired to do. I was hired to pull the show together when it was in chaos. We are now 13th in average share and tied for 31st. I have no pilot plans. That was just a face-saving thing. Oh, for Wild Wild West? I guess so. And I guess that's something he thinks he does. He goes into a show that he thinks is supposedly not good, and so that's where all those rumors come from. That there was something wrong with Star Trek is probably from him because he thinks that he was somehow coming to save the show. So probably his heart was in the right place, but he sure wasn't for Star Trek. I know that much. So Freiberger said, when the third season came along, my agent brought me into Gene's office and he said he would like me to produce the show. Gene said, would you write a script so that we can see how you do? I've got a lot of credits as a writer, and I don't do audition scripts, says Freiberger. I'm not here to audition as a writer. I'm here as a producer. If the requirement of getting the job is for me to write a script, I'll have to pass. They should have just let him go right there. Roddenberry liked Freiberger's confidence and smirk. He felt the new producer would be hard-nosed. Have to be hard-nosed to stand up to NBC, Paramount, and Leonard Nimoy? And he liked that Freiberger connected with science fiction. As a boy, Freiberger enjoyed H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, Mary Shelley, and Robert Louis Stevenson. Oh, well, that sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds like he would say whatever necessary to get the job.
Oh, do you think he didn't actually like all those books?
Well, in practice, and what I saw him do to Star Trek for season 3 and Space 99 for season 2, I would say very unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the truth, but I would say very unlikely.
Yeah, it seems like
his whole
maybe
legacy
his heart was
is
in the right place, but he's just wasn't right for it.
It's possible, but his legacy is all about slashing budget and saving money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
he's
I don't
supposedly
know.
his legacy is going into a show and making it do better, supposedly,
But doing
except
the
for Star
opposite,
Trek.
right? And except for Space 1999, he did the same thing. He made it worse.
Oh, he did that. He did this to Space 1999 too.
That's where he
Oh
went
my
right after
god.
Star Trek. Yeah, and just like with, but it was even worse with Space 1999. It was like almost unrecognizable.
Oh my god, classic comics is making me laugh. Ironically, Strange New Worlds made me turn to drugs. Hopefully that's not actually true and it's just a joke, but it was funny. And Franco Walker says, I forgot this was a live show. It's so fascinating to listen to Anti-Derivative Jill.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Yeah. I was just having fun reading the book while you were gone. I think everyone's left. Except for Franco Walker. Glad you're still here. Well, because I wanted to get in. This is the only time I'm going to have a chance to just sit here and look at this book. Because next time we're going to be back to business, back to focusing on the episodes, and I'll have my time limit where I have to leave exactly at 3. So I wanted to take the opportunity to look at a little bit into this stuff.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and it's been interesting so far. Justman continued, I finally said to the studio, I'll tell you what, let me off the show and I promise I won't take another show. I'll wait and come back next spring for anything they want me to do. They said no. They won't agree with that. I felt like a prisoner. Yeah, they really should have given him showrunner. With
That's too
Justman
bad.
yeah, exactly. It is. I really think so. With Justman reluctantly staying as co-producer, Eddie Milkus, at least we had Justman though, who had been assistant to the producer during the previous season, and Greg Peters, who had been assistant director, were bumped to associate producers. Star Trek's 1968 creative team was uncomfortably set. Wow. Gene Coons had Stephen Carabatzos, and then DC Fontana. Lucas had Fontana. Fred Freiberger also needed a good rewrite man to shoulder the burden of revising the scripts for production. Roddenberry had already prepared a short list. There was, however, one man not on the list who very much wanted the job. He will be identified here as MDR, and his story will be told as an example of how not to get a job in TV. Wow. Okay. Well, you get to read the book if you want to hear about that. He worked as a comic writer, and he talked to Roddenberry about a story concept, and he sent it into the production office. And he did so by turning detailed notes in on Miri, a script that MDR knew they were having trouble with. And he got a copy from Matheson. Okay. So MDR did an unsolicited rewrite, and he took it into a completely different direction, more fantastic and more expensive, and clearly not Star Trek. Many thanks for your interest in Star Trek and your promptness in giving us things to consider and discuss. Unfortunately, our current situation has necessitated an additional producer, Gene Kuhn, and another rewrite man, Stephen Karabatzos. And it appears our rewrite and polish will need to amplify for some time. We'll keep you in mind. Good luck with your writing ventures. Oh my god. And this MDR guy, they won't say who he is, but he kept writing and trying to get the job, even though he didn't understand Star Trek and couldn't write for Star Trek. So, okay, don't
Possibly may have moved on to something else, but yeah, I don't. I'm not familiar with the initials.
Yeah, MDR. I don't know. They won't tell me. I don't know why they included it in the book if they're not going to say who it was.
That's true.
This is kind of funny. Wow, this is a long letter. You got to read this book yourself. I'm not reading that. Larry Kimball wanted the job, but he didn't get it. Jerome Bixby was well liked at Star Trek and certainly had sci-fi credentials, but there was no way Roddenberry was going to trust Bixby to clean up other writers' script. What he needed was someone he could trust to clean up Bixby scripts. Okay. Jerry Thompson wrote a script for The Lieutenant. Nope, he turned him down too. Who does he hire? Come on now. This book is teasing me. John Furia, the writer of I Dream of Jeannie, wanted it. Wow, so many people want to write for the show. Frank Paris, a veteran associate for Gunsmoke. Arthur Brown Jr. Why won't they just say? The last of the 12, Emmett Lavery was asked to check out Arthur H. Singer, whom Roddenberry had taken a meeting with on March 13th. Singer was 58 and, like many, began in New York in writing. Okay, it looks like this is who it is. Is that it? Arthur H. Singer? Is that who helps with season 3?
Ooh, I don't know. And wonder why I called him NDR then, if that's the case.
No. That was somebody else who didn't get the job.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Because I was skimming through trying to see. Okay, so Roddenberry whittled the list down to 2 names. Sealing Lester, because he worked on The Outer Limits, recall, and Arthur Singer, due to his association with prestigious series like Kraft Theater and East Side, West Side. And Freiberger chose Arthur. Okay, well, there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's some details about more episodes I'm going to skip.
So, refresh my memory. Freiberger chose the guy with the experience behind the Outer Limits, or East Side, West Side?
No, the other one.
East Side, West Side?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that figures.
Yeah.
It's something not related to sci-fi, of course.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, I wish he would have picked the Outer Limits guy, too.
Yeah, so do I. I think that would have been an improvement.
Okay, so Freiberger, in a 1999 interview for Star Trek the Magazine, said, "At the beginning of the season, Bob Justman and I had a session with the production department. They laid out for us what they wanted to do to stay within budget. Bobby Justman was fuming. He knew much more about the production than I did." Well, at least he knows that. Let's look at it as a challenge, Take it as a challenge to see if we can do that and get a good show. He said, "They're killing us." That's how he put it. He said, "They're absolutely killing us." So the mandated first season budget per episode was $193,500. In 2014, that equates for $1.4 million. For the second season, that amount was dropped to $187,500. Now the price tag was set by Paramount to $178,500.
Wow.
And money would have to be squeezed from this reduced budget to compensate for inflation and salary increases for the cast. Franco Walker says that Freiberger sees himself as a troubleshooter. Yeah, he does. I think he does. I don't think he came in to destroy Star Trek, but but he kind of hurt it a bit. I mean, I'm gonna go into this open-minded because I don't remember exactly what happened.
Well, I guess from one perspective, you could say he did his job. He was told to cut back on costs, which he did do. He was a cost cutter, so maybe that's...
Yeah, exactly. Here he says, "I was dealing with a network that hated the series, the absentee executive producer, and of course, an almost impossible production schedule. The one bright spot on the horizon was Bob Justman was 47, coming on as co-producer. So, first of all, you're restricted in terms of your set. You have to do it on board the Enterprise. So in terms of the plotting, in terms of the action, it's pretty difficult. The writers don't like it, and they're asking, can't we do another set? And it doesn't sit well with the directors. When you have a director in TV, he's looking at this like his shot to make an impression in Hollywood. So he's asking for cranes that are 50 feet high. He's asking for top Broadway stars. He wants every little two-line part to be a gem. Legitimately, they are fighting for the best they can get. Meantime, production is on their back telling us, get the show done. Okay, yeah, so he didn't have a bunch of tools to work with. But I definitely say that thinking of Bob Justman as a bright spot in your production was a good call by him. I'm glad he thought that way at least. Dan Robertson, meanwhile, was still pushing for more planet-bound stories. In a letter Roddenberry wrote to the NBC man, despite fears to the contrary, our shipboard tales have consistently turned out to be among our most exciting and colorful action adventure episodes. If what you mean is that you want exotic, strange, and unusual, the unexpected and the fearsome, there is no rule which says these items cannot and have not been introduced just as successfully on a bizarre landscape. Yes, we want the bizarre landscapes too. We want both. NBC should keep in mind that our ship, after all, is our familiar home base, and it is as important to the fabric of our show as Bonanza's house and ranch, which has been the locale of a number of their most exciting episodes. But Roddenberry's words fell on deaf ears, as they had seasons 1 and 2. Anyway, yeah, there's problems with everything going on. So that's going to be fun to look at, to see what happened there. But I'm so glad season 3 happened, because it gave us more Star Trek later.
Absolutely. And gave us syndication. Without that, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Exactly. And so I'm going to stop here at Good Cop, Bad Cop. I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to start with whatever. I'm going to go through the rest of this intro and see if there's anything else to add to the beginning of our season review of Spectre of the Gun. And I'll get that pared down for us.
Okay.
And I think that's a good point to stop it for today. Thank you guys for listening and celebrating with me season 2 of Star Trek. I really enjoyed talking with you guys about all of these great episodes, and I can't wait to finish out the original series. And now
yes, I'm excited.
This has been really great, and thank you guys for coming on this journey with me. And this will be quite a road for us to travel for the next weeks. Next week's we got this going on.
Yes, and thank you for having me once again, Jill. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Definitely. Wraith Wolf says, thank you. Very interesting stuff. It is very interesting. I want to read it some more, but I think I should save some of it for next week. Franco Walker says, thank you, chat. Yes, thank you. And so, Pop Culture Curator, would you like to tell us about your channel and whatever you've got coming up?
Oh, tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to be covering on my horror sci-fi stream, The Blob from 1958, before we do the remake from 88. Tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, we're going to be returning to Gilligan's Island with my good friend Gorilla's Random Thoughts and myself. We're on season 2.
Oh, yeah. You haven't been doing Gilligan's Island very much.
Yeah, probably 3 or 4 weeks. I feel bad I haven't been able to cover it, so definitely going to get back into the groove of things. Saturday, I have my Revelations from the Lab.
Oh yeah.
And then next Monday, I'll be back for Lost in Space.
Of course.
Which we're nearing the end of our first season. Yes,
exciting.
It is. And it helps that you're there too, Jill. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I enjoy being there for that and exploring that series for the first time.
Yes.
Franco Walker says, take care, everyone, and much love to you all. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. You had a great turnout in the chat today.
Yeah, I did. It was incredible, and it was a great way to close out season 2. I'm very happy that all of you guys were here to talk about this show with me. And I want to talk about it some more, so join me next week. Subscribe if you haven't, and let's have a great Tuesday.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Here's the preview for Spectre of the Gun, the first episode of season 3 in production order. This one.
Aliens, you shall be punished. You, Captain Kirk, yours shall be the pattern of your death.
I'm not Ike Clanton.
Well, I'm glad to meet you, Mr. Kirk.
You've got until 5 tonight to get your horse-stealing, scurvy crew out of town.
The Earps will kill the Clantons at the OK Corral at 5 o'clock.
We are the Clantons.
At 1 minute past 5, you'll find a hole in your head right from this gun.
Billy!
We're not gonna move from this spot.
They're shadows, illusions, nothing but ghosts.
Right, very cool.
All right, move along. Done. Stop it. Get off of the things. Go outside. Get some food. It's like, it's a time of day where you live. Go do something. Shut up, Snoopy. I don't care. You smoke too much. Let's go. Let's go adventure. Let's go explore.